Welcome, everybody, to the next episode of Chosen Links. I'm Boaz Hepner, and this is my very trusted co-host, co-moderator, Nathan Looney. This is actually the first time we've had a multi-part series, with a slight exception of my Survivor thing. That's kind of an asterisk. This is actually a minimally three-part series that we put together about Black community, about Jews of color. And our first episode was a really great one that's airing as I speak. That's about the bridge, the divide, the bond between the Black and Jewish community. But we have a different, though connecting topic to talk about this time, which is very specifically about the Black Jewish community, the Black and Jewish community, the Jewish and Black community. How to actually say it does matter. Words matter, labels matter to the point where some people actually hate that we're saying it at all. I know we have at least one person on here who I definitely want to hear from, and that's Yehudah Pryce, who actually was saying, I'm going to be on this topic, but I actually don't even like being called a Black Jew because I don't think of myself that way. And I said, great. That doesn't make you less good for this conversation. It actually makes you better for the conversation. Let's talk about that. But before we get to specifically talking about that or any other question, I'd like to introduce everybody. So Nate and I are going to take turns, and we're going to go through everybody alphabetically. So thank you for each being here today.
Well, I'm happy to be back for round two of this. The last one was really fun to be a part of, and I feel like there was a lot of learning and really looking forward to getting into this conversation. So let's just jump on into it. So we'll start with Biggah, also known as Wise Words, born in 1974 in Brooklyn, New York, married 20 plus years to his first generation American-born Israeli wife. Father of three, was in security for over 30 years, did both private and club security, did hotel security as well. And he's been a peace and education advocate for over 20 years, and really works strong I say as a force of nature in the fight against anti-Semitism and Islamist extremes. One other thing that I'll mention here is that Biggah, we are calling him our honorary Jew, in that he's somebody that's so deep in this work, even though he is not Jewish. It's really important to acknowledge him and bring him into this conversation.
Thank you. And yeah, Biggah, you're such an honorary Jew that you're honestly probably you're a better Jew than a lot of Jews I know. It's pretty spectacular what you do for us, which is why we just think of you as us.
Yeah. So I'll go ahead
Appreciate it.
and um, acknowledge the second person, which is Chaya Lev. Chaya Lev is a vibe maker, a movement coach from California, and lives her best life in Jerusalem. If you are not familiar with Chaya Lev, you're missing out. She is another force of nature. To know Chaya is to love her. And she's gonna bring it when we get into it.
And let me just mention when I asked everybody to give me bios, Chaya was just like, they don't need to hear about me. I'm like, yeah, they actually do. Everybody's gonna have a bio. It can't just be, and then we're gonna gloss over her. And she was just like, ah. And I never got a bio. So that's why Nate was like, I'm doing this one because Nate literally calls her his sister.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Lovely.
Welcome, Chaya.
Thank you so much. I was like, they don't know. High level. That's it. That's
all you
the
need to
bio.
know.
All you need to know.
That's it.
All right, my
Hi
turn.
guys. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Now we have Rachel Moon. Rachel is a Washington, D.C. based social media influencer and Jewish pro-Israel activist. She's also the owner of Style Over the Moon LLC, a fashion and lifestyle blog. And let me also say she has the rare distinction of being only my second repeat guest. That's how good she is. Don Samuels beat her to the punch in the previous episode because we had a whole episode about him trying to beat Ilhan Omar's ass. Unfortunately, he didn't win. But Rachel now is on for a second time, and she's a rock star, and she's so enthusiastic. Thanks for being here, Rachel.
Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So next we have, and the next generation. This is part of the reason why we do this. So next we have April Powers. April Powers is a Black Jewish woman who has led DEI for some of the world's largest companies after experiencing virulent anti-Semitism that made international news April now dedicates herself to combating anti-Semitism and building bridges in her role as Vice President of DEI for Project Shema and co-founder of Jubian Princess.
And I'm going to mention that Nate said we need April. It wasn't just like, oh, she's influential because and she looks good on camera and she talks well about this. April offers something that almost nobody in the world can offer, which is her insight and expertise into DEI. And let's be honest, when we're talking about issues nowadays, any issue, and certainly any issue revolving race, religion, or anything else, DEI is a hot topic that we're going to have to get into. And people had questions. It is really invaluable that you're here today, April.
I'm ready. She ready, to quote our Tiffany Haddish, who was on the last one, right?
Not the last one. She was on my first one. I know.
Sorry.
She was on my first one. She's hard to reach, but she was on the comedian one. That's what she's focusing on right now. All right. Now we've got Yehudah Pryce. Let me just tell you, there's a lot to say about Yehudah. He's the type of guy that I could have a 2-hour session just with him, and I bet we'd only be scratching the surface. So let me give you a scratch surface bio on him. Dr. Pryce is a licensed clinical social worker who previously was a full participant in street warfare with rival gang members. He was a gangster by choice, eventually making the decision to become a Jew by choice, a choice born within the confines of prison. Arrested as a teenager, over 16 years completed of a 24-year prison sentence was the incredible prelude to his entry into an Orthodox Jewish conversion program. Since his release from prison in 2018, he completed his BA in sociology with an emphasis in social welfare, his master's in social work, and his doctorate in social work. I mean, I could go on and on. We need to get started. He is unbelievable. He speaks at shuls around the country about his journey from juvenile delinquency to Judaism, as well as the power of tshuva, forgiveness, and community, standing up against anti-Semitism, the importance of the unbroken chain of indigenous Jewish religious tradition as it pertains to his Jewish identity and Israel. And he resides in the Pico Robertson area of LA with his wife and 4 kids. And just before this, he lived in the Irvine community with my brother. So by pure coincidence, Yehudah and his family are friends with and have sat at Shabbat tables with my own brother. So it's kind of cool to have these connections interlinked.
And I know I'm going to read the next one, but I just want to mention something about the Hepner family. And that is just a golden standard for the whole family. Before Boaz and I got tight, I was being invited to his parents' house for events and meals. And then, his mother was like, well, I'm inviting this cool farmer. And he's like, wait, that's my friend.
Yeah.
There's
a young man. It's a young man from the farmer's market. His name is Nathan Looney. We'd like you to meet him. I think you'd get along. I'm like, Nate? I've known Nate. We've played games together at our friend Noah's house. It's pretty. Yeah. So yeah, my family gets around in a nice way, and Yehudah's experienced that, which is lovely.
So next we have Elisheva Rishon. Elisheva was born and raised Orthodox Jew from Brooklyn, who founded Elisheva Design, an identity empowerment brand, and the BJZ Squad. An innovative, comprehensive, warm program that uplifts Black Jewish American Zionists daily. She has been published by Aish, Jews in the City, A Jew in the City, and featured in Refinery 29, Allure Magazine, Hey Alma, and more. She frequently discusses Orthodox Judaism and Black empowerment, Jewish empowerment, and anti-Semitism.
Elisheva, you're a rock star, and you're even coming dressed to the nines today, which I very much appreciate you doing without prompting. People were very excited that you were going to be on when they saw you in the picture. They were just like, oh my God, we get to see her in motion. So very visual, but also very strong opinions that we get to hear today that we want to hear today. And then last but not least, Ashira Solomon, who I've been talking to for ages, been talking about multiple different episodes, including her show in Israel. I'm really pleased to see her. And she's in the state of California while we're talking. She's visiting her family up north. So Ashira Solomon is a dynamic and inspiring international speaker and moderator whose talent for empowering others and fostering positive change has taken her around the world. As a senior public policy expert with a strong background in management and communication, Ashira has been the co-host of the talk show The Quad, alongside the Deputy Mayor of Jerusalem and previous Canadian ambassador to Israel, which is produced by Jewish News Syndicate. Her professional background in strategic partnerships and cross-functional liaison enhances her exceptional moderating style in the presence of high-level public figures such as heads of state and CEOs. If you guys haven't seen the quad, it's really good. I'm actually going to have an episode dedicated to it where I'd like to just gather everybody from it, past and present. I'm talking to their producer now. It's really damn good. It's a bunch of, think of The View, but less shitty. So yeah. Anyway, I don't think I'm losing any viewers now for that.
You know, well,
No.
we're just gonna jump on into it. So let's start with, you know, we mentioned earlier to you all why we're doing this episode.
Yes,
But
this is going to be I want Yehudah to jump into this one first, and which means he knows what we're going to ask. What are we going to ask?
no, we're not gonna ask that yet. I'm
Oh,
just saying,
never mind.
you know, we're not there yet. We're not there. You're jumping ahead. Essentially, you know, this episode is really important. There's this constant conversation between the Black community and the Jewish community, as they're two unique, separate things. And those of us that fit at that in the middle are just like, hey, what about us? Like, how are you all talking about us and about doing this thing and not recognizing that there are people holding multiple identities? And so it's really important for us to show that. In the first episode, we focused on Jews of color and non-Jewish Black leaders. This episode is about focusing on the experience of Black Jews in particular. So with that, go ahead and get on to that first question you're about to go to.
Why are we calling this Black Jews? Should we be calling this Black Jews? Should it be any other title? Should we get rid of labels altogether? This is the whole idea about what are the pros and cons, and people get into these arguments always, ever since way before even affirmative action in the 80s, I believe. It's all about, do we want to add labels because it matters, or do we want to remove the labels? And let's get into this specific label. This is an episode about Black Jews. It's on the poster. What do you guys think about that? And I want to start with you, Dr. Yehudah Pryce, because he had a very interesting response to me when he accepted the invitation for the episode.
Okay, thank you for the question. So one, I mean, my primary identity is a Jew, right? It governs my actions. It governs everything I do from the moment I open up my eyes to the moment I go to sleep. Whole life cycle, and it's fundamental to who I am. I'm a Black man as well. Black man, Jew, right? Black man, because it's a social construct we're talking about. Black and white really came out of a sort of white supremacist ideology. And I don't believe that Jews who predated white supremacy, that's how far we go back, should graft America's color-coded social constructs onto our identity. I think it does us a disservice. Right. Not only that, when we're thinking about where we come from, right, you might say the Ethiopian Jews, Moroccan Jews, but that's connected to a specific Jewish community. It's not simply describing a skin color or simply a social construct. It's connected to Jewish minhag. If you ask me what my minhag is, I'm going to say Ashkenazi. That I'm an Ashkenazi Jew. If you want to put a modifier on that, so that's one of the reasons I don't like putting this sort of modifier on my Jewish identity, right? It's about a neshama, right? When I'm talking about what it means to be a Jew, I'm talking about a soul, right? And you don't put a color on a soul. You don't put a social construct on a soul. It's a real thing. I deal with reality in America as a Black man. As my time in prison, I dealt with actual racial wars, you know, getting stabbed by skinheads, neo-Nazis. And so I know about that world. I know what it means to walk on a Shabbos night and people go across the street, right? I know what it means to be a Black man in America, where sometimes you have to smile so people are not in fear, right? So I understand all that, and I'm definitely not taking that away as who I am. I'm just saying being Jewish is something different. It transcends these sort of just simply ethnicity. It's part ethnicity, right? But it transcends that, and it breaks down really on this neshama soul level. So that's why I took issue with this sort of modifying thing, because I'm not into just doing it just for the sake of doing it.
What I was going to say there is I really appreciate what you're pointing out here, because there have been multiple times in my life where people have asked me to choose. Are you Black or are you Jewish? Which community are you going to stand up for? And I'm like, there's no separating out the different pieces of myself. It's all part of who I am. So I really appreciate that context that you're adding. April, go ahead.
I'm going to jump on this from a DEI lens, as well as sort of repeating and reaffirming what you both just said. Dr. Pryce or Dr. Yehudah? What do you prefer?
You just call me Yehudah. You just call me. It was
Yehudah,
good
okay.
cards. You throw the doctor
You
on.
earned it. You earned it. Oh my
Earned
gosh.
it.
You're a doctor. I'm just going to call you doctor. So, what's up, Doc? Um, we are one of the oldest surviving civilizations in the world, right? So, the way that we define ourselves is outside the scope of modern constructs of race and racial identity, which means that most Jews of color or multi-ethnic Jews in the United States are Ashkenazim, right? Do have that European background or heritage, based on our definitions. And I think it's really important to maintain and hold on to culture, to use our definitions. And other people, we have had to allow other minority groups define themselves. You're going to hear me say this a lot today, because in DEI, that's the rule. You allow other minority groups to define ourselves. The other problem, though, is that the United States social construct does not apply in Israel. It does not apply to Israel, Gaza. It does not apply to most countries around the world. I have been the global head of DEI. And when we try to overlay these fake constructs onto other countries, identities, peoples, it does not work. Let's go to India, for example. A lot of people have similar skin tones. We would see them all as Indian. India is one of the most diverse countries in the world. They do not have black, white paradigms, but they certainly have racism, classism, caste systems,
Racism, of
etc.
course.
And so, um, so, but here's the thing: we are a minority group. Wherever we have gone, we are 15 million people. We do not control the narrative. Wherever we have gone, we have had to fit in to the social constructs of the places that we go. So, if for those of us who are based in the US, unfortunately, these racialized constructs do have an impact on our lives and how we define ourselves. And the Black Jewish covenant that has made so much change in these United States of America and for the world is critical. And so being able to define ourselves within that construct and have influence, impact, and language to provide for that dynamic, I think it's important for us also to note that there are Black Jews.
When you keep saying we're 15 million, I don't want to sound like an idiot here, but who is we that you're referring to in that case? Which of these labels, to be really blunt, are you referring to?
Thank you. The population of Jews in the world, and that's Black, White, Ashkenazi, Sephardic, and Mizrahi, Beta Israeli, and more. We are in total, in summation, 15 million people in the world. We are 0.2% of the global population, which means most people have never met a Jew, but they all have opinions about us, right? And so, yes, 15 million. People think I do these polls all the time in my classes, and people think we're a billion, we're 250 million, we're 60 million. And that's true of a lot of minority groups. There's a perception that we exist more in space than we do in reality. But for Jews, the X on that, the multiplier on how many people believe we're so much bigger than we are, is outrageous.
Yes, it is. Hey, Biggah, I don't know if you were waving to somebody or if you were trying to raise your hand.
No, I was actually waving to somebody. Sorry about
Okay.
that.
That's okay.
Well,
You be friendly, but Elisheva, you're definitely raising your hand.
Yeah.
So go ahead and you say something because that's definitely not a wave to someone.
Okay, so I'm gonna try to be as quick as I possibly can. So I'm totally feeling what Yehudah was saying and April was saying. Like, and I'm gonna say it, but it's like in a different way for me. Like primarily, I do, in my mind at least, I identify as an Orthodox Jew because I knew I was an Orthodox Jew before I knew I was Black, before I knew about everything else, and also because my my earliest childhood memories were ones of trauma that were of the Crown Heights riot. And that was when I learned what it means to be a Jew. It literally felt like a freaking, it felt like it was a war zone. It was a war zone, and I was very young, and I was.
wait, I just want to make sure that people catch that. You were saying that one of your earliest memories is the riots in Crown Heights.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I grew up in Crown Heights and Flatbush, and my family was living in Crown Heights during the time, and there were Black Jewish families living there, and we were erased from the narrative. But then again, the Crown Heights riots in itself was erased from history, so that's a whole other discussion. They're only recognizing it now, but they didn't back then. You know,
When were the Crown Heights riots for those who've never even heard of them? Give or take.
It was in like 91 or 92, one or the other.
So very close
And
timing to the LA riots.
yes, it was, except it was different in nature.
Mhm.
Yeah.
There's a lot of misinformation surrounding what happened, who was involved in it, how it, how it started. And even until this day, people have been putting out a false narrative, which is incredibly triggering and bothersome and infuriating to me, especially because I have a background as a historian. And I actually, my family was living there. So like, what do you tell? You weren't even there. Well, why are you giving an opinion on this? Shut up. Anyways, I, that was because it went on for days. It wasn't like a one-off. It went on for days. You couldn't go outside, and people are going to get very violent. And I didn't even realize until I was older that I know I have PTSD from that, but there are certain things that I do in my life that I started to do as a child that I remember doing, like grabbing a doll in a sitter and putting it into a bag for my to-go bag, because I'm thinking in my mind, oh, they might hurt us. And I hid it from my parents because I wanted to be strong for my parents. But that was the first, like, what am I going to do with a doll? I don't even know. Like, it can't even feed me, but whatever. I was like, this is what I need to take, the things I like, just in case we have to run for our lives. I don't know. But I still do that to this very day. I didn't even realize that until I started going to therapy like a short while ago, because I still to this very day have it to go back. Except now it's more advanced. My passport is in there. There's some money in there. There's like two pairs of shoes.
Admit
There's like,
it's more
that
advanced.
it's not
yes.
living in
I don't
LA.
think
It's
that's a
not a
bad
bad
thing.
thing to have a to-go bag. Number one, we have earthquakes. You never know when the zombie apocalypse might come.
To go back.
I got two
Yes.
to-go bags.
All Los
So,
Angelinos.
It makes
but I
sense in
will
Under
say
the
LA.
bed.
on
Shoes
that
under
note,
the bed.
I will also mention that we were both in LA for the LA riots, and so that there's something about experiencing something like that at a young age that sticks with you, and it's important to like really honor that and recognize that that's a part of the lived experience. But I think that kind of what I'm hearing from you is the fact that because your identity as an Orthodox Jew is tied to that early memory, that kind of explains or sort of gives space to how you identify as a Jew, more broad stroke.
Yes, and in addition to that, there's also a problem because once anti-blackness started to become known to me, I um, was thrown into this world of nuance and complexity in which I wasn't supposed to exist, because I was not being accepted as a Black person or as a Jewish person. I was being told that I didn't belong in either way. So it wasn't even choose. It was, you don't belong here at all because of who and what you are. And I'm a dark-skinned Black woman. I'm not ambiguous looking, so I couldn't like float into and just be on this side or that side. I am who I am. I look how I look. And unfortunately, that has led to my experiences, which is why I do the work that I do, because that experience in my childhood and everything I've gone through has led to me wanting to build bridges between the Black American and the Jewish communities, and I have to acknowledge that in America, my Blackness is a big deal, and it's often seen as a problematic thing, but I can't change it. I was born Black, I was born Jewish, I'm sorry, and
Sorry, not
it's
sorry.
important.
Yeah.
So
There's a lot to unpack in what you said. I mean, I'm curious about the trauma. I'm curious about like if it turned you off of both communities or which one more, but we'll have to shelve that for now because that's a big topic, just like Yehudah's big topic of his experience. Anybody catch the random like stabbed by skinheads or like just another day. There are so many topics to come out from each of these that like I tell people this is going to be 2 hours and they're like, you have no idea how fast 2 hours goes when you're talking to a bunch of people with
and also like we have a small group of folks on this call. There are so many different stories out there from Black Jews.
Yeah. And
one of the things that I hope that comes from this is it makes people curious about who are the people that are in their own community and what are their lived experiences and how do those experiences contribute to making our community stronger. So I want to jump into this next question because Elisheva kind of was going there. So naturally, and this is open for everyone. And this question comes from Dina Leffert with a little bit of some modifiers.
Dinah Leffert.
Dinah.
That's
I don't
okay.
have my glasses on.
I know Diana. She's a friend of mine. She's a very big advocate for Israel and a stand-up comic.
And I kind of feel like one of the through lines is me screwing up people's names because that's
Dina
why we
sounds
have
proper. To me,
that's
Dinah
what
sounds
post-production is
weird.
for.
Dina's proper.
Yeah,
So,
we're good.
Dinah Leffert. So here's a question from her. What does it mean? And this is open for everybody. What does it mean to deal with both anti-Semitism and racism as Black Jews? You can take it however you want, but what does it mean to be holding both?
Yeah, you get two punches on the punch card. You're closer to getting that free Starbucks. I'd like to actually start this question with Rachel because last time we got to Rachel last, so I'd like to get to Rachel sooner now and not do her bad twice.
This is a good question. I know Dinah too. She's a good friend. Well, what is it like? I think probably everybody here has experienced both. I think now, especially post October 7th, it's heightened. Sometimes somebody is coming at me for being Jewish. But when that doesn't get me, they always bring in race. And they always will make a racist comment about either like I'm not Black enough, which I've heard that my whole life. You're too white, you're Jewish, so it doesn't make sense that you're Black. Uncle Tom now is like a fan favorite. So what is it like? I think it's something that not a lot of people, unless you live it, understand. Again, it's something completely exclusive to the United States because I don't experience it anywhere else, especially not in Israel. And I think there's just a complete obsession with, oh my gosh, I'm sorry. I don't know how to turn my notifications off. There's a complete obsession with race in this country. And it's weaponized against minority groups.
Interesting. And it's interesting that you bring up Israel, which makes me immediately want to see if they completely back up your statement. And they were nodding, so I bet they do. Chaya and Ashira. Ashira, let's start with you because you're not muted. What you actually are from California, so you are American by descent, and now you're living in Israel. You are a Black Orthodox Jew. I would like to know, how does what Rachel just say play into your experiences, your lived experiences?
I 100% agree with Rachel. So the comments usually are like, say they say something anti-Semitic, and then, like she said, that doesn't really get at you. So they have to follow it up with, Black Zionist or Black Jews are the worst because they're not even accepted in their own community. So then they try to attack us and make it seem like there's this huge rift of us trying to be accepted by the Jewish community, and that is somehow connected to our Zionism, and we're selling out our Black card so the Jewish people will embrace us, which is complete nonsense. Speaking from the lens of Israel, though, everyone loves to bring up what happened to the Ethiopian Jews, this whole lie about sterilization, which we all know was not sterilization, and we can go into that topic another time. But in Israel, people will say, oh, they'll spit on Black people. I've never been spat on in Israel. I can go into any shul in Israel. No one assumes that I'm not Jewish when I walk in. Like if I come to a shul, maybe in California, their first is like, who are you? Because it's not familiar to them.
Why are you here?
Are you here?
What do you do? What's your story? What's your story? I'm saying we're Jewish. We all got a story. What's going on here?
And is the
The whole people got a story.
Right away, they just start talking to me. It's just natural for them to see someone of color and say, that's a Jew. Why else wouldn't they be a Jew? They're in the synagogue. Why else wouldn't they be a Jew? In America, not so much because of the racial construct we have going on here.
No, we all love Israel, and so I'm never trying to shit on Israel because that's the opposite of what this is about. But I also try not to whitewash, no pun intended, Israel or anything like that. So everything you're saying is not to say that there's no racism in Israel, though, right? It's not like this perfect utopia Pleasantville about
racism any country in the world.
Right.
Like, come on. What people don't understand about Israel, though, in terms of racism, like me and Chaya talk about this all the time. Like
All the time.
It's it equally. Like you Baharian, they got something to say about Baharians. You're Russians. I mean, Israeli Jews talk so bad about Russians. You know what I
The
mean?
worst. They
Like
get the worst.
Everybody could get it.
Because they bought the pig.
everybody on, and it's not about skin color. It could just be about the region of where your people descended to and came back to Israel, and about, you know, the different minhagim you have now, or just like the culture that you're bringing to Israel. And so everybody gets talked about in Israel equally.
So it's
It,
equal
and,
Humans
opportunity.
and a human.
Equal.
I just want to add a little piece, because I think this is what bothers me the most, is that Americans live in a bubble. You're the bubble. You're the bubble. You're the bubble boy that can't go outside because you have a snotty nose all the time. The rest of the world acknowledges that people don't like people. I would never say there's no racism in Israel, but I know, once again, like Ashira, we both live in the same area. When I go into a Beit Knesset, it's almost like I get it if I say I did Gior, because they're like, okay, so what part of Africa? It's like, once again, it's not like that they're not acknowledging I'm different. It's like, in America, it's like, so people will say, so tell me about your mother. Tell me about your father. Like, it's a different ideology behind it. And so you take this entire, by the way, I want to say Yehudah Pryce. I was in Biggah, and up comes Yehudah Pryce, and you guys don't know, I call him Nino, Jewish Nino Brown. He's walking through Biggah. Now, Yehudah, I'm real big. Yehudah is maybe half my size, maybe. And he was walking through Biggah like he was running the streets. I said, Yehudah Pryce? And the guy, this older Ashkenazi guy, was walking with him, and he said, how do you know him? Now, it's Shabbat, so I wanted to be like, how do you know him? All Black Jews know each other. What? I know Nino Brown, baby. I know Nino Brown. I need to know how you know Nino Brown, sir. What's going on here? Don't be asking me no questions, but it was Shabbat, so I couldn't get them good. But what I'm trying to say is, when Yehudah just said it's a stabby stabby, I'm like, who would even mess with him? Because he looked like he was ready at all times. So when he
I want
came
you
on, he
all
was
to
like, I'm
take a
Ashkenazi.
I want you all to learn from Chaya here. This is what the episode should be. Just chime in and talk shit and speak, because this is amazing. My
Yeah,
God.
Yehudah
You know,
said, I'm Ashkenazi. I'm Ashkenazi.
Amazing.
you know what? I think Rachel kind of hit on this. I think, and around this idea of like how people are pitting our different identities against each other, and when they don't get a rise out of one thing, they hit it in another angle. And I've never seen that happen as much as since October 7th. Whether it's like, as soon as I imagine this is the same for everyone on the screen. As soon as you mentioned anything about any sort of despair over the atrocity of October 7th, loss of followers, people saying, okay, well, now you're a white supremacist colonizer. And I'm like, since when? So I mean, this is something that looks different this time around. For those of us like that have non-Jewish Black friends that stopped talking to us post October 7th. Like, it's been like, what? We were cool for decades, and now because of this thing that's happening that you don't even want to sit down and have a conversation and get a deeper understanding of, we're not going to be in relationship with each other. So I mention all that to say, because I know that our audience is going to be very diverse, and they need to understand the different layers of responsibility or pressures that Jews of color, Black Jews in particular, are facing in this current time and cycle.
I'm curious, before we move on to any sort of other topic. Biggah, you as an honorary member of the tribe, you've taken on this completely masochistic mission. I mean, I bless you and love you for it, and at the same time, I think there must be some level of mental illness for you to actually
A little bit of a screw loose.
who willingly volunteers themselves to literally walk through fire. Like the rest of us, before October 7th, we're members of the tribe. We're gonna defend ourselves. You didn't have to. Now, I get it. Your wife's Israeli. That might be the be all and end all, but there's a lot of people out there who are intermarried and their spouse is not doing anything close to what you're doing. I want to
Well,
understand, joking aside, how have you been treated by the Jewish community, by the Black community? And I'm talking about them as two different entities right now and separate from the Black Jewish community. Because I got to imagine you've taken a lot of Uncle Tom type shit the way that that's been brought up.
that the Uncle Tom thing is definitely one of the most frequently used slurs, and it's become one of my favorite because it shows me just how uneducated people are, because people haven't read Uncle Tom's Cabin, so they don't understand or recognize that he was actually the hero in
Right.
that book, in that story. So when people say that to me, the first thing that I do is say thank you, which all automatically throws them off. But they think that I'm just trying to be a little funny with it, and then I go into the explanation of who he was, and then I tell them you can't take that back. I am Uncle Tom. So that's one of my favorite things. But as far as the treatment, uh, it has definitely been a mixture of hate from all sides. I will say that from October 8th, which is the first time that I spoke on the subject, and I only spoke on the rape side of it, and my thing has always been, and I just thought it was like a no-brainer, anybody that is okay with rape is a piece of shit person. So that's basically what I was saying. And it just kind of snowballed. And from there, I decided to kind of hold the mirror up and let people see what it is that they're doing and how they're doing it and kind of document it all.
When you say you've gotten it from all sides, I want to just make sure I understand though. Are you getting it from also negatively from the Jewish side as well?
I have, especially in the beginning, I got a lot of Jewish people telling me that I was just a grifter, that I needed to shut up because I shouldn't be speaking about things that I have no idea about or things that don't affect me. And I never even approached it on as I'm on your side. I just took it as, okay, that's how you feel. We'll see how you feel, in a few months. And mind you, at the very beginning, I had no idea that it would be 15 months later almost, and we would still be here.
None of us
I
did.
thought honestly that it was going to be maybe a month or two, strikes and, a lot of destruction, and then we were going to move on. I had no idea that we would still be here and people would still be as passionate as they are about the subject.
This is our brave new world, it seems.
Yeah.
For me, the most hurtful thing was getting it from people who've known me my whole life. Like I was canceled in 2021 and I was told you're not black, you're a white supremacist Talmudic Jew C-word just because as a global head of DEI was speaking about the anti-Semitism of that moment. Another DEI professional who happened to be Palestinian and Muslim said that I should never have been allowed in DEI because India and Israel are my two favorite countries that I've been to. Yes, somebody who is a DEI professional from Montessori schools and writes children's books. So the most painful part for me, though, is people who have known me and my family, who've been invited to Thanksgivings and dinners in South Central, in West LA, in Jewish for Jewish events and non-Jewish events, to come at me with some of the horrific vitriol, stereotypes, and conspiracy theories blew my mind. And on top of it, telling me I'm on the wrong side of history on this conflict. When so for me, that is, you know, above it and beyond anything. Is like when you're saying, oh, pick a side, pick a side. It's like there's, kind of like Biggah just said, are you on the side of rape as resistance? Like, how is that? How are we picking a side here? And like I said, we're 15 million people. I'm one of very few Black Jewish DEI professionals in the space. And so we have a lot of Black DEI professionals. We have some Jewish DEI professionals, and then there is me and a few other people, not all of whom are out as Black Jewish DEI professionals. And so, as Nate said earlier, there's a unique voice in the space, and I do have to call some of these things out from the space in which I am expert, right? But in terms of having to choose Black and Jewish and some of these other things. The worst has been the call outs from people who know me well and who have completely ignored all reason and logic and continue to, harass me with anti-Semitic tropes.
I want to follow up too, and just I want to highlight that the writing was on the wall before October 7th, right? That was our Dreyfus Affair moment where a lot of us thought, oh, we have a good thing going and it's all good. And all of a sudden, one day you look around and go, oh, my neighbors really don't like me, right? They really hate me. So it was a Dreyfus Affair moment. When I was doing my doctorate in social work, the framework for the program was diversity, equity, intersectionality, anti-racism, and power analysis, right? So we were having these sort of discussions before that. There was the issue before that, which was people couldn't articulate what anti-Semitism is. So if you claim to be an anti-racist and you can't even conceptualize, right, what anti-Semitism is when Jews are the #1 victims of hate crime in America per capita, right, there seems to be a problem. When you use your anti-racist lens to deconstruct systems and only focus on white supremacy, anti-Semitism has been foundational in the Western society, and not just the Western society, right? If you just look at the Hamas Charter and what they call out to, right, it goes deeper than that. So how can you honestly be in the anti-racism field and not be specifically addressing anti-Semitism? And I'm in these spaces, these social justice spaces. I'm a social worker, and there was no allyship. Allyship was super minimal, but it wasn't. And if you claim, I don't necessarily claim a banker or a real estate agent to be so concerned with anti-racism, right? Maybe they should be, maybe they shouldn't be, but a social worker, I do. And if we're in these spaces and people are trying to tell Jews and define Jews what anti-Semitism is, right? Ain't no white person gonna come up to me and talking about this is what anti-blackness is. You're not, you got it wrong. Like, bro, you know what I mean? Like, but they do that with Jews. And so we're in this position, tying it back to what you said earlier, where it's sort of a W.E. Du Boisian triple consciousness, right? When he kind of formulated double consciousness as Black folks in America having to view ourselves through the dominant white society and also through the lens of Black society, right? And knowing, is this action, how does it affect us, in relation to the majority and to us? And now we throw in this other sort of thing of Jewish identity as well. So it's a sort of triple consciousness. So if you are Black, if you are Jewish, and you are dealing with this, right, particularly in America, but there's also the global component as well, right? You have to keep all this in your head and knowing that when you address this, it may affect how others in this particular part of your identity view you or coming at you. But I also think there's potential in there, right? There's potential because of that, right? It allows us to explain and connect with different sort of parts of our identity in a way that somebody who is just in one particular part of the identity can't do that, right? Because we see ourselves in other people. And so many people can see themselves in us. And so that gives us the ability to really get people in this space to be open to a different sort of message.
I love this concept of triple consciousness, and I'm just thinking about the reality of how taxing and exhausting it must be to triple think at every moment in time, regardless of who we're engaging with. I just want to acknowledge that. I want to move to this next question.
Yeah.
Can I just say something really quick?
Go for it, Rachel.
I think what Yehudah was saying about how this problem existed before October 7th is correct, because I think back to the friendships and the people that I'm no longer friends with, stop talking to me, whatever. There were red flags that were missed in conversations way back to like 2021 with the spike of anti-Semitism in the United States, and me being vocal then in conversations that were had that I kind of just dismissed. I think it kind of comes down to we as Jews, especially American Jews, have done a terrible job at displaying to the world that the Jewish community is diverse. And we were scrambling post October 7th to prove to the world that Jews aren't white. And so now, I mean, I know Ashira and I have talked about this now, Black Jews are being included and welcomed in conversations where maybe we necessarily wouldn't have before. I don't know if it's because it's needed to fit the narrative to prove that Jews aren't white, but it really is a problem. I've dealt with it my whole entire life in different spaces, having kids, going to a Jewish preschool, all of these things. And it's kind of on us as a community.
You're really getting to like, I mean, I feel like you're looking at our
Yes.
notes.
We were,
This is
he
literally
pointed to the next question
Okay.
before you spoke, and it's perfect what you're saying because of what I was going to ask. But I know, but April, you wanted to interject, so interject.
I'm going to interject with my last name, my mother's last name, and maybe some of our last names on this call. My last name should have been Paderewski. My father-in-law escaped Nazi Germany by the hair of his chinny chin chin. They forced all Jewish men to have the middle name Israel, and he changed it, right? As soon as he got here, I was like, that was such a beautiful middle name. Why would you change it? Because Germans, in order to identify Jews, because we all blended in there, had to have certain things. We still have his Nazi passport. I'm rambling on that, so we can cut some of that out. But we had a choice. At some point, there was a choice. For most of Jewish history, we were not considered white. White is a social construct. For Italians, for Irish, for all these folks who were coming into these United States of America for whatever reason, Jews were fleeing persecution, right? And so we had some choices to make as we are blending into these societies. And yeah, if whiteness was a safe place to be, Jews, when we had the opportunity to blend into whiteness, we did that. I don't blame my father-in-law or my grandfather for changing his last name from Tisnowski to Tisnoff to Tisner. I don't. I don't blame Jews. And he was called Blackie. He was a dark-skinned Jewish man. I don't blame Jews for trying to blend into this, for changing our religion into from being, you get one variety of Orthodox, or now we've got multiple varieties and conservadox, Reform, all these different choices now, to try to blend in with the Christianity, right? But and films, right? We invented the film industry, the comic book industry, and all these other things where we got to portray ourselves as white, knowing that over half of Israelis would not be considered white here, knowing that my mother probably was not born a white person or recognized as a white person in the United States, right? And so we had some choices around our safety to make, and now we're having other choices to make around our safety. But white presenting Jews or Jews who have access to whiteness also have to look deep into their souls today, tomorrow, and into the future and say, okay, if we are going to tap into our Jews of color to remind the world that we are not white and that our whiteness is conditional and our whiteness can be taken away at any time, then you need to also create spaces of belonging for us where we aren't just welcome, but we are a part of the community, that you're tapping into us not as a tokenization, but as legitimately that we are a part of the community. And I said this at my bat mitzvah. I just had a bat mitzvah this year. I didn't invite anybody because I was like not ready, but it was what it was. I had the leper.
Mazel tov.
I had the leper portion. I was like, dang, really?
How fitting for this talk. Aren't
right?
we lepers?
No, because I felt like a leper actually. And I said to the crowd of mostly white presenting Jews, I said, when my mother had a child with a black man, my grandmother didn't care, and I was the favorite. My uncle is black. All the cousins are bluish. But some of you get concerned, and I want you to know that of all the grandchildren, I'm the first to be bat mitzvah, and my son will be the first bar mitzvah, and I'm the person going out and combating anti-Semitism. So, we have to embrace the diversity. Look at all of us in this Zoom are in some way combating anti-Semitism, yet and still we can walk into some Jewish spaces or any space and be denied access or, a sense of belonging because of our skin tone or how we present, or any of our other intersecting identities, right?
Well, let me ask, because this is very specific to what you and Rachel have been saying. Let me ask the following question from a close friend named Avi Kaplan. He said, with the anti-Semitic notion that Jews are white colonizers being pushed so hard, there's been a concerted effort to showcase Jewish people of color and get their voices out there. Is there a concern that this is performative or a worry about being seen as a token Jew of color? I would like to start with Ashira because I know that she's going to have to leave for an unfortunate reason for a funeral. So I want to catch her as much as I can before she has to leave.
I think it can be a tokenization. Rachel Moon and I were at a event in New York, and our dear friend Amy Albertson brought up and said, listen, she's an Asian Jew, and she said, we no longer want to just speak on the diversity panel at Jewish events. Why aren't we included in all the other panels where we have expertise? Like, why can't I just be on the political panel, Rachel on, social
Fashion.
whatever the panels are, why are we included only when it says Jews of color diversity panel, and then you rock up to talk about what is it like to be a Jew of color? Well, that's not really the center of my life, to talk about what is it like to be a Jew of color. If that's the case, what is it like to be a Jew? Because all Jews are of color. You know what I mean? Like, we're all of color. And I just think that going back to the very first question of the label of Black and Jew, Mizrahi Jew, Ethiopian Jew, one, we have to stop identifying to the places that we were exiled to. Two, we do have to start reclaiming and re-embracing our Jewish terms and our identity within, re-embracing our traditions, our values, and the names that the Torah calls us. There is no term, the Black Jew. There is no term, the Ashkenazi Jew in the Torah. God calls us B'nai Israel. We are the children of Israel. We are Am Israel. We have all these names other than the Ashkenazi Jew, the Mizrahi Jew. All these terms were made up for us. So I do think that the Jewish people have to come together, and we have to work out, like, how are we going to move forward this next generation? How are we going to teach this next generation about who they are and how to call themselves? I have a podcast called the Black and Jewish Podcast. I don't call it that because I'm Black and Jew, because I'm a Black Jew. I call it that because I want to talk to Black people and I want to talk to Jewish people. But I understand that my audience is America and they work under this social construct. So yes, I do use the term Black Jew or Black and Jewish, throughout different talks with different people. However, I have to acknowledge that it's not correct, and I should be saying B'nai Israel, I should be saying Am Israel, I should be using the correct terms, and we shouldn't have to bow down to the labels and terms that others give us. But with the tokenization, yeah, it definitely is. You need to include our voices in the area of our expertise and not in the area of, oh, we want to see Jews of color. If that were the case, I mean, like I always tell people, like when I'm speaking to Black people, I'm like, when you're calling Jews white, like what did you think Hitler was killing the Jews for? You know what I mean? Because they were blue eyes. You know what I mean? Like they were distinctly looking differently than the rest of Europeans, And I really do, I always have to say, listen, I have to be critical of both the Black community and the Jewish community. And my criticism of American Ashkenazi people is they do have to decolonize themselves from whiteness and this assimilation that they have taken on in America. Assimilation has hurt our people. Assimilation will continue to hurt our people. Assimilation does not move us forward. And they have to themselves distinctly say, we are not white. It's not enough to just say, look, we have Sephardic Jews and we have Black Jews. No, you need to, an Ashkenazi Jew, stand up and say, I may have light skin and some of us may have some blue eyes, but we are not Europeans. We are from Judea and Samaria, period, full stop.
But not only say it, let me just interject, not only say it, mean it, because you cannot say we are not white Jews. First of all, this whole conversation, sometimes living in Israel, and I've only been living here 8 years, it just really annoys me and it irks me, and it's just so low vibrational and so goofy, to be honest. But you cannot say we are not this when I walk into the Beit Knesset and the first thing you want to do is ask me a question. So you are this. So at the end of the day, you have to make up your mind. I'm with you 100%, Ashira, is that we want to say, we really don't want to give, and I'm not saying we as in me, I'm saying we as a community in America, we don't want to give up. We don't want to come down. We don't want to, when you look at me, and you say like, wow, she's in the same, it's like a rich person, somebody see like P. Diddy, well, not P. Diddy, oh, that's horrible. Somebody drown on a boat.
That's P. Diddy.
Not baby oil Diddy, not baby oil Diddy. Oh, Lord, you don't cut that out. somebody on the boat, like the baby or something, and they go like, why is the baby on this boat? It doesn't matter how, what you look like, how did he get on this boat? And I think it's still this ideology that you can't be because, and I will tell you something like this. A lot of people will say, oh, uh, where do you get your authenticity of being Jewish if you're Black? I have an Ashkenazi father, or I have an Ashkenazi grandmother, or I have an Ashkenazi cousin. Oh, yes, that's where it comes from. No, the Jewish people have a story. We have a diaspora story, and we've been everywhere. Some of us did yours, some of us did this, some of us did. And so we have got to say in America, if you don't want the people to see you like this, you have to not see yourself like this. You have to not ask me when I walk in the door 19 questions. Okay, 19 questions, because I'm going to tell you something. Ashira knows we live in Naklo, we go to all these Beit Knesses here, and the person that was faking like they were Jewish in Naklaot, that was lying and who was a whole Christian and who was doing Sefer Stam, doing Brit Milah, doing Hatunot, like doing weddings.
Which one?
Nobody, listen, I'm not even going there. We got a whole little section, but nobody asked. Some people were kind of like, not looking past the skin, but like he literally didn't know anything. He said, I don't know anything because I was reformed. So they were like, okay, he's reformed. That's sad too. But
you can do, okay, Briss.
But I'm saying, now let Yehudah walk in the door talking about, let me do a Brit Milah. They're going to ask him 19,000 questions.
Yeah.
Where your grandma from? What's she doing?
Yeah.
So we have to also so that's our tikkun anyway, because now look at you. You're sitting there talking about me pouring the wine. Look at here. You got Mary, Joseph, and Paul over here pouring your wine and giving the Brit Milah, and he's not even one of us. So come on now. So we also have to.
So following up, Chaya, do you think so? Yeah, I think it's on both, right? But I think it's on us as well, right? Because if we self-segregate into an imagined Black Jewish community that doesn't exist, there's no Black,
100%.
right? To me, Ashkenaz is our term, right? When we went to diaspora, right? It connects to
Right.
Minha, right? Like you're not coming over my house
That's
for Pesach.
Minha.
I'm not coming over your house for Pesach if I don't know, hey, what's the food looking like based on? There's a lot of different sort of things that connected to that. So in a sense, it's ours, right? But if we self-segregate, I like when I go into spaces and I'm treated as a Jew, not as a Black Jew. When my kids go to Jewish schools, right? When they go to Jewish schools, if they can see representation, not, oh, now we're doing a separate section on Black Jew. No, I want the picture of the kid rapping to fill-in to look like the diversity of what Judaism is. And then I'll just add, though, I think even if we're talking about Zionism, and I use it in the I have a religious reason connecting to Zionism, not necessarily secular Zionism, but we have something other people don't have, right? Other people's culture. We have an unbroken indigenous tradition that came out of Eretz Yisrael and has been passed down meticulously from generation to generation in this unbroken chain, right? That's, if you want to connect to something that's a decolonization movement, it's connecting to who we are in our essence and what not only formed and created Jewish identity, but kept it stable for thousands of years, right? That's how you decolonize, right? Going back to Torah. So I was
Yeah, and I know he's talking about minhagim and nusakim because that's supposed to be our value system. Is that what makes you Ashkenaz is the way you pray, right? But when most people say that, they mean that you eating gefilte fish and it don't have no salt on it. But I'm just saying, Yehudah, you're gonna have some salt on your gefilte, and you're gonna have some hot sauce on your gefilte. Okay, so I'm Ashkenazi too. Let's get into it. But we saw.
I want to give
the biggest lie
Elisheva.
ever told. The biggest lie ever told is Ashkenazi food is Jewish food. We need to all know about diasporic food because we all got hoodwinked and bamboozled.
No, but it's Jewish food.
I want to hold on a second.
but-
Hold on a second. I want to give Elisheva a moment because she's had her hand up for a minute.
Yeah,
Okay,
just do the real hands and the hand raising. Don't press the hand thing because it changes where you are on the screen. Go ahead.
Okay, so I want to take it back to where it started about the whole tokenization of it all. Yes, there is tokenization going on right now with Black Jewish people, but the thing is that it's been going on for a while because I've been at this game since like my late teens. So I've always seen the favorite Black Jewish person. It's always one. that everyone uplifts and puts in everything, even though they are not qualified to be speaking on these topics. And I'm not gonna like say names, but I'll just make up something. The Crow. So the Crow is a
Oh, she
good
being
example.
messy now.
No. I'm just gonna say, like the Crow was
Chaya
highly
Lev, where'd you go?
problematic. The Crow. I don't know what you're talking about. The Crow, obviously, was a highly problematic person that stole content from other Black Jewish creators, that mistreated other Black Jewish creators, that had no idea what they were talking about and began spreading misinformation, but also was taking money from Zionist institutions, even though they were literally an anti-Zionist the whole time, and no one was listening to anyone that was warning them about it. But when you tokenize someone because they're Black and you just throw them into every single subject, that's when you get problems like the Crow. The Crow has done and continues to do an untold amount of harm to the Jewish community. And she always will, because she doesn't care about the Jewish community. She doesn't even care about the Black community. She only cares about how much money she can get, how famous she can get, because that's all she wants. All she wants is fame. And for example, like that's why when I made the BJZ program, when I was going over all the applications, I was looking for something for people that are experts in their field. Like April, DEI queen. Yes. I got Shonda. She's the educator for over 20 years. Yes. I wanted everyone, Ilana, like she's Black, Jewish, Israeli, musician. Okay. I wanted everyone that was an expert in their field, because I keep saying this and been saying it my whole life. There's no reason in the world why, when there's a finance, music industry, acting panel, why there isn't someone Black and Jewish being represented there. Because like Yehudah said, we need to see representation. We need to see representation, because I know way too many Black Jewish people, like my whole life, that are good at what they do. And they're not sitting there, and no one can tell me why. In fact, they might even be better than the whole panel.
Palatability.
Yes, like this, yeah, like
Yep, that's exactly where I was gonna go with this. Is yep,
and
one point
go ahead, Ashira.
I've been seeing too, just being in this space, is that Jewish organizations tend to want to have the non-Jewish Black voice versus the Black Jewish voice.
Yes.
Yes, so they will launch onto the non-Jewish.
Don't rock with me though.
That's because you're honorary. They already know better.
You have Black Jewish kids. You have a Jewish wife.
Yeah.
Why aren't you using, the Black Jewish voice? Because we actually intersect both and are well versed in both communities. You know what I mean? Like, the Jewish community is very insular. People do not know much about how the Jewish community works, nor do they know how Orthodox Jewish community works. And so it's like, why wouldn't you use people who know both, and they rather prop up? And I thank you to our non-Jewish Black allies. I really do. I'm really thankful for them. But I do see that Jewish organizations prefer to prop up those voices than our voices.
And it can be a both and.
Dropped the ball
it can
with
be a both
Kyrie,
and,
with
right?
Kanye, because they could have had somebody that had, again, these sort of identities and a perspective. Not only that, from the other side, having a conversation. You could say the same exact thing as somebody that looks different from you, but the fact that you can see yourself in another person and understand that they've probably had, right, knowing the social construct of Blackness in America, have had similar social experiences as you, right? There was a big opportunity missed, and you see people going to their favorite, I guess, Jewish spokesperson that doesn't necessarily represent like we could necessarily represent. This is not me like positioning myself or anybody necessarily particularly, but just seeing so many times when it matters, us dropping the ball, but then again using it. Okay, we need somebody of a different sort of face, or look for a different reason, because we want to show this diversity. Diversity should be in leadership, right? Should be in different spots in these organizations, and not just utilizing us for this niche when we are representative of Judaism and Jewishness, period.
Yeah. And I think
a lot of it is fake.
That comes up when we're talking about.
They don't represent, Orthodox Judaism as well. Like I do get stifled a lot because, I keep Shabbat, I'm Orthodox. And
we are the Jew of Jews.
Yeah. So I also want to say that, like, they prefer either that non-Jewish Black voice or that Jewish Black voice who's not observant, you know, and I think that's a problem. I think that they should make sure that they represent all of us, and that we can also be speaking on behalf of Israel, you know, in an Orthodox way as well.
And this is
And Boaz,
part
you
of,
chose to
also,
have
this
this
is
on
part
a
of
Sunday. You
the,
chose to have this on a Sunday. Chaya Lev, you just posted about like, please don't ask me to do stuff and break Shabbat in support of my Jewish
please
community,
don't.
which I appreciated so much because we're not seeing your voices in some of these things. And Elisheva, I'm just going to follow up on what you said. I'm not going to name any names, but you know, Boaz, you have chosen a number of Black Jewish voices. We're pretty legit, and if there is a person who is either not following us, I just came out of being private because I had death threats. But if they're not either not following us or blocking us or we're not following them, you may that may be a problematic person that you may want to take a look at. I'm not saying that we're the be all and end all, but you know, when you talk about tokenizing voices that are harming our community, we put out that signal, and some of those people have blocked us because we've
ignored it.
called them out. And so I just want to put that out as a, you know,
I just want to take a
But
moment
but
and you all are hitting on. Hold on a
The
second.
list.
after you,
Hold on a second.
I got something there.
Let
Y'all
me
got me
jump
over
in
here
here,
being
please.
messy, Lord.
Yeah.
I literally
Hey,
have a whole list.
y'all
I have a
being
whole
messy, but
list,
what I want to say
and I
here,
have
since
a folder of all the problematic. No, I do. I have
Elisheva has
screenshots.
receipts.
I document everything. Like, listen,
show enough, but this
listen.
is what I want to say. This is what's important about this call is that, or this particular episode is that we're showing that when you have a token, you miss out on the fabric of all of these different experiences. And that is the biggest challenge because then you're putting out into the world that there's only one way to be a Black Jew. And so that represents the entirety of Black Jews, both in Israel and in North America, versus like taking the time to actually look and see who are the thought leaders in this arena and bringing them into the conversation versus going to that one safe person. Biggah, I see you
Well,
got it.
first of all, Nate, can I just add this? We are still obsessed. We want to go back to the golden era of Black Martin Luther King and Rabbi Herschel talking about we will overcome from 1907. And people, we want to go back to 1912 and we want to stay there. And we want the Black person. We are not ready that now they have members of this community. And I'm sorry, Zara Israel, which is patrilineal Judaism, okay, there is no way that you should pick somebody, Zera Israel, over a Black Jew. Do not speak for me, ma'am. Do not speak for me, sir. This is the problem. So what I'm saying is, there's nothing wrong with Zera Israel. If you know what Zera Israel is, Yehudah, I know you know everybody. No, I know you know. There is a problem when you pick up a person that looks like you want them to look and you want them to be, and they're Jewish enough because father came from Russia or Poland, jumped off the sea. I don't know. But their mother is a Black Christian. Boom, that's the person you want to speak for me? No, not happening. So I understand what Elisheva is saying, receipts and all. But what I'm saying is if we're going to have us speaking, we should have people that really represent the diversity because we are all over the place. We're everywhere. I was in New York with Biggah, saw so many Jamaican Jews that I didn't even know existed. Why do I not know that? Why did I not know there were Jamaican Jews existed? Why do I not know that? I mean, I know it, but why?
Shoal.
Why?
Oldest shoal in the Caribbean is
the person who
Jamaican.
my guest from episode 2 in my college episode, her name is Imani Chung. She's half Black, half Chinese, all Jewish. She will
Let's
be
go.
she's the one that's been cutting all the reels for us in the current episodes.
Love
And
it.
she right now, guess where she is with her family in Jamaica. So it's
Yeah, Miss Chong.
kind of cool timing. Now I know that Biggah is being polite but wants to say something, but I want to I'm going to just mention one thing in reference to what Ashira says because I don't know when she's going to suddenly have to go for a very noble reason. Chesed shalemet, burying somebody, biggest mitzvah, the most modest mitzvah in the Torah, the true kindness. Uh, I promise you, because ironically, anybody watching this was going to have ample reason to write in the comment section, like the little assholes they are, and they're going to have comments like, see, this is like literally a double standard. They're talking about not talking about it, but they're talking about it, and they're saying don't tokenize us, but that's it's like we're shining a spotlight, but saying don't shine a spotlight, which is kind of true. We're talking about something that we're also trying to say, but don't focus on us. We don't have to just be talking about these types of panels. I'm going to make a promise to all of you that I've already already made to a lot of you guys. You're not only going to be on my show for these episodes. Ashira knows I'm trying to have episodes with her about the quad, where she's actually the only person who's black, and I hope that won't always be the truth. Rachel and Elisheva, you guys are going to be on episodes about fashion, right? You know, I'm going to have an episode with Biggah that's going to be all about people who are crazy. No, I'm just kidding. But it's going to be all of you.
A bunch
Chaya,
of us.
Nate told me early on that Chaya, who keeps changing and turning off her camera, making me like strobe light crazy effect, he told me she should be on a comedian episode. I didn't understand that till right now. She's giving me huge Tiffany Haddish vibes, and I'm not talking about because she's a black woman, but I'm talking about because she's giving me huge Tiffany Haddish vibes. I had her on my show, and boy, does she remind me of her personality-wise, and I mean that in the best of ways. You are all going to be on there. April, because of talking about DEI, Biggah, because of the general influencer doing it for God knows what reason, and Yehudah, I mean, I feel like I just need to talk to him about prison life and becoming a Jew. I swear to all of you that you're all going to be at my Shabbos table if you'll let me, and I swear to all of you that you're all going to be on episodes that are unfortunately going to be more white than black, because it's just going to be about Jews. So I'm telling you right now, this is not going to be the way you're going to be represented in my mind, even if that's this episode's topic.
And what I want to say to that is it's not about tokenism in those moments, but it's like putting people together based on their subject matter expertise. Whereas like April is a powerhouse around talking about anti-Semitism. And so, you know, if we're putting together a conversation that's talking about anti-Semitism, having an April Powers in that conversation is crucial. How much time we got?
It's powerful. We've got it, Ashira, for God knows how long, but we've got the general talk for about another 40. But Biggah, you got to talk. Tell us what you were going to say, man.
What I was going to say, going back to the diversity and tokenism, I think where the problem really lies is that we and when I say we, I mean just people in general, we tend to try to not be confrontational. And while I respect that, the truth doesn't hold that title of being confrontational. The truth is just the truth. Facts don't care about feelings. So when you have people who are put out there to represent a certain sect and they're not really part of that sect, or they're not truly representative, that needs to be called out. And I think where the problem comes in, and I say this kind of from a place of expertise, because my wife, who has been on Jewish Instagram since the inception, has been passed over and has been victim of so many of these things. And my biggest issue is always, why is it that you are not putting these people on blast? Because they're doing a disservice to your community. You understand what I'm saying? And I understand nobody wants to be confrontational. Nobody wants to be that person. But if you have actual proof, for example, that someone is stealing posts or taking work from somebody else or plagiarizing, that person needs to be exposed, and that is going to be beneficial for the entire movement. And I think that until that starts to happen, there's always going to be cases where people are being called a representative for something that they should not be representing.
Such a good point. Even when I see those posts come up, I'm like, y'all, why we shouldn't have to do this. And something I'm blanking on who said it. I think it was April Powers that talked about death threats. I think that's another piece that people don't realize, broad stroke, is that many of the folks on this call have dealt with some level of threat of personal violence or whatever as a result of being out in public about their viewpoints. And that's a weird kind of weight to carry. You know, I'm former, Biggah, you spent 30 years in law enforcement security. I spent, time in law enforcement myself, and nobody wants to be looking over their shoulder every time they're getting into a vehicle because they posted something calling people out. I had two questions here, but I think I want to go in this particular direction because we're kind of in this realm. And as Black Jews, some often confuse us with Messianic Jews. What's the difference, and why can this be problematic?
Well, we don't believe in Jesus, JC. We don't, you know what I mean? That's fundamental, right? We don't believe in any JC. Not only that, we don't believe in the Greek scriptures, right? The so-called New Testament. That has nothing to do with us whatsoever. So you can't claim that, which is not a Hebrew scripture, right? It's a Greek scripture, right? What it was originally written in, and then claim to be part of our. Again, I look at it differently. I look at it as we have an indigenous tradition coming out of Eretz Israel, and it's been passed down in an unbroken chain meticulously. So you can't just reinterpret things randomly. That's why a lot of the so-called Hebrew Israelites, it's hard for them to discuss with me because it's not based off a tradition they're talking about. They're talking about a random interpretation. Same thing. You believe in JC, that's a random interpretation. It's not connected to our unbroken chain, our Masorah. That we can literally point to a rabbi in every single decade of every single century for thousands of years until, from way back then, right, of what we believe in. And so there's no innovation in that sense where you can just come up with new things.
Can I ask you or any of you to backtrack a little bit and just actually explain to us what are Hebrew Israelites? You're saying they follow Jesus and so on? Because
no, not all of them don't. All of them don't. So I want to be clear
No.
about that, right? All of them don't believe that. There is a lot of confrontational ones in America that do. And I have these conversations and I say, are you talking about Hebrew scriptures and Hebrew this, but you're using Greek scriptures? But at the end of the day, there was a group of Black folks from America that went to Liberia first, got ugly for them, ended up going to Israel. They believe they are the true Jews, right? Are true Jews.
Hebrews.
Yeah, Hebrew. Yeah, but it's a word game. It's like somebody telling me, how can I be anti-Semitic? I'm a Semite. No, that's not how the word is. That's such a weak argument.
Stop.
So
I just got that.
they claim to be Hebrews, but it's not based on a tradition. It's based on a sort of contemporary, I could tell you the sort of 100 or so years that it's been around, interpretation of things, right? Of them reading a passage and transvaluing. Christians have done it before us. Islam has done that before us, transvaluing passages to mean something that's not. We believe we are Jews, right? We know us to be connected to Yiddishkeit and Judaism and our identity because we have an unbroken tradition. You can see it in thriving Jewish communities all over the world that we're connected by Masorah, by our tradition. They are not. They're connecting to nothing, which is why they can't go back hundreds of years to tell you they're learned sages that believe in the same thing they do. They're not connected to tradition. They're not connected to Yiddishkeit. They have nothing to do with us.
And there's one distinction I want to point out here is the recognition that there are Hebrew Israelite Israelis that are very much serving in the IDF and are representative as a part of our community. But it's really important to make the distinction between.
But they're not Jewish.
That's exactly what I'm getting at. There's
be supported by non-Jews. I'm all for that, but they're not Jewish. And not only that, I want to be clear on what is cultural misappropriation because we call it out from other people, right? If you steal my identity and say you are real and we are not, I'm gonna have an issue with that. So long as you don't fit in that, you good with me.
Yeah. And my understanding for Messianic Jews is that was an effort by some group, I don't remember which one, to undermine Jewish identity and to convert us in a hidden way. So that was an effort by whatever community created Messianic Jewry to get Jews to believe and follow Jesus as the Messiah, I guess, in order to save us, sort of like that, manipulation of our own heritage, right, against us. So somebody can do some research on that, but that was my understanding of also why Messianic Jewry is such a problem.
Yeah, Elisheva,
not for them, but for Jews.
Yeah, Elisheva,
you might be able to speak to that as a historian.
I'm not going to get into Messianic Jews because it's what do you call it? It's contradictory. The end.
Misnomer.
Yeah. But going to the Hebrew Israelite situation, it's the only decent, normal conversation I've ever had in my life with a Hebrew Israelite was an Israeli one, because the American ones, they're on something else. And not only that, I don't think I had to tell this to several people, several top Jewish leaders and top Jewish speakers who have a lot of followers who didn't even know this, that there's different types of Hebrew Israelites. They just like we have like conservative, they have all these different types, and people just seem to think that the Power Rangers are the only ones. Like, no. There's other types that actually started using the word Jew, that try to pass themselves off as Jews. You know.
You see those in New York a lot.
We got them on Venice Beach too.
Denying our right to.
In Times Square, we used to get into it all the time with them.
Yeah, so it's important that people understand that, because if people only see the extremism, then they think that that's all that there is, and they're missing the full picture. Like there's a whole situation going on out here, and they're thinking that they're the real Jews, the only one. And in my experience, being Black and Jewish, like I wasn't the right type of Jewish, the right type of Black, all that. They seem to have a visceral reaction to someone that they meet that is Jewish, that is Black, because deep down they know it means if I exist, you don't. And that's what, so like sometimes when you see Hebrew Israelites confronting Black Jewish people, it's more visceral than they would attack anyone else that's Jewish, that's not Black, because we're attacking their religion, their identity, their self, their sense of self. So it's very highly
just by
problematic when they deal
existing.
with us. Yeah, just by existing, because they know if we exist, you don't. If we exist, you don't. And that's, I mean, you even saw some videos like, or forget videos, like I have real friends in real life, but you also saw videos where they were attacking Ethiopian Jews. And they're like, you're not real Jews. Like it's just, even though everyone in the world knows that there's Ethiopian Jews, these Hebrew Israelites are like, no, you can't, you're not really Jewish, because it
it threatens them.
It's similar to like attacking an anti-Zionist Jew. Like it's very difficult to have dialogues with anti-Zionist Jews, because their Judaism is based on no Judaism. It's based on attacking Israel. It's based on all these things that made them how they are Jewish. So when you attack an anti-Zionist Jew on their views of anti-Zionism, you're actually attacking their Judaism. So which is why you get a visceral reaction from them. But that's a story for another time.
You just touched on something you're the first person to make me think this, but we've all experienced that nomenclature that we've come up with since October 7th that pisses all of us Zionists off, of the as a Jews, right? That we all see in Hollywood and other places. What you're coming up with is an idea that I'd never thought of, which is as a Black Jew. And that's the same concept, but being hijacked by other people who say, as a Black Jew, and you're like, fuck you. Stop saying you're, just like I say fuck you to to the Oscar screen when somebody starts to try to twist the Holocaust about something else and say as a Jew.
You can't even talk in your house during the Oscars.
No,
so,
it's true. I have an Oscar party every year, but man, stuff gets said. So that's really, really interesting. I do want to not do a disservice to certain allies and friends. Nate pointed this out because our last episode, we had two Hebrew Israelites who were Israeli Hebrew Israelites who served and who were amazing. So shout out to Lilach Logan and shout out to Ashriel Moore, both people who do not do any of the stuff that you mentioned pisses you off. Neither of them can say as a Jew. They both say as a Hebrew Israelite. I'm not Jewish, but blah, 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 blah. And I love them and I love what they're doing for us. Yeah, Biggah.
Ashriel actually is the first Hebrew Israelite that I had a conversation with that did not end in an all-out argument. I'm originally from New York, from Brooklyn, and in Times Square, they would set up shop and have the soapbox, the microphone, and be all decked out in their garb and everything, and we would stay getting in a confrontation with them. And I thought for a very, very long time, anytime that I heard the phrase Hebrew Israelite, that is what I went to. And it wasn't until a few months ago that I had a pretty long conversation with Ashriel and realized that there are, just like was said earlier, that there are different sects, just like with everything else. And I think that it's important to differentiate between the two. But at the same time, you have to defend yourself against the ones who are trying to deny your existence.
Right. And I think I just want to add, because Ashriel is a personal friend of mine, and I know Lilach, once again, I really, really want people to understand, especially for me in the Ashira, we live in Israel. Our Hebrew Israelite community in Dimona, they are Israeli, and that they're a part of our community, and they are very, very special and have a very, very unique story. And I have friends that are Hebrews, and they have one of our biggest Teva organic, vegan food, because they were vegans. that's big in Israel. So also you need to go into this nationalistic ideology as well. They serve in the army, lilacs in the army. There's a lot of levels because in Israel you can actually be who you are. You can be Yemenite. You can do this or you can do that. You can do this, and you can say, but I'm still Israeli. And so I know I fight with people about that. Like when it comes to this level and this side of the world, all the labels, we just have a hodgepodge of labels as opposed to New York Hebrew Israelites that are just Power Ranger, deactivate, fighting, being silly. When you get into something that you can't compare to someone that's like, I'm trying to be part of a society. Those Hebrew Israelites are harmful and nasty. And Elisheva has told me so much of they've done to her. And I don't get that from the Hebrew Israelites here at all. So I do agree with you, Biggah.
And this is why part of the reason why we appreciate having this question, because it shows of like why this is such a sensitive touch point for so many. And when we're talking about and this particularly happens in the United States, not in Israel, as Chaya Lev was pointing out, when people see us and assume that we are Hebrew Israelites. And for I can say for myself, my immediate thought is you are associating me with the guy standing on the street holding a microphone. Like, really? Really? You see me here with my tallis and shul, and you think that that's a part of who I am? Come on, like, be curious about my identity.
But let me add something to that. I don't think it's just the extremes, right? Because if you're actually in I guess, a normative communal Jewish space, right? And you are Jewish by Jewish customs and our indigenous tradition, to confuse you with somebody, whether they are very virulent, anti-Semitic, or maybe they're not. Maybe they're nice people, and I'm all for allies. Actually, my son is named after the Druze officer that gave his life in the Hard terrorist attack. So I'm all for Israelis and different border people that ally with us for sure. So I'm not taking away from anything about that. But there's a sensitivity in that. At the end of the day, no version of Hebrew Israelites are Jewish according to us, right? And so to confuse with that, right? According to Judaism or Yiddishkeit, that doesn't mean they ain't great people or anything like that.
100%.
We have to speak. There's the issue with people hating Zionism and hating Judaism is that they do not believe we're the same people in that land, right? That's it. When you boil it down, it's not because of Netanyahu's policies, it's not because of this, right? They don't believe the Jewish people have the right to self-determination in their ancestral homeland. And if you hear the argument, because that's not our ancestors. We're not connected to it, even though we have the strongest argument. No other culture, no other tradition. We have passed down our tradition meticulously for thousands of years in an unbroken chain, right? And so that idea needs to be lifted up. So I just want to add a little nuance to that, right? As far as like what it means to be Jewish and confusing us with people who are not Jewish. Not just the acts of anti-Semitism, but if you're not Jewish, awesome, right? No problem with that, right? We're all made in divine image, right? But everybody has their role.
All right, I'm gonna ask there's some really big topics we have to get to, and so I'm gonna transition with one of them being so key, and I'm gonna have an episode about this, mental health. Maybe I should even have you on, Yehudah, as a social worker for that one. Rona Lalazari, I'm not sure if you guys know her, but she's really big in the mental health community. My friend Elaine Chaya, who is a fun Persian online presence, she's actually started working with her. She wants to know how you guys have handled your mental health challenges in light of both racism and anti-Semitism. Almost a hat trick. We just have to get you a third one to be attacked with. I want to start with Rachel, if you don't mind, because I feel like we haven't heard from you the longest.
Okay. Dealing with mental health with regards to dealing with being Black and Jewish and being attacked for both. That's her question. I mean, to be honest, I've been on the internet for a really long time. I have developed very thick skin. It really doesn't bother me. And if I'm like feeling a little bit snarky that day, I may do some like funny like clap back, screenshot them, put them in my stories kind of thing. Have a little fun with it, troll them back. It doesn't get to me. It doesn't get to my mental health. That doesn't bother me. There are other things with regards to being a pro-Israel Jewish activist on the internet that does bother my mental health, but racism, hate, whether it's for being Black, whether it's for being Jewish or anything like that, just does not bother me at all. Doesn't
Sounds
affect.
like humor is a very, very strong number one defense mechanism for you, though, which is
Well,
fantastic.
I'm very, my whole family is very like sarcastic and dry, and I always have a quick comeback. And I don't know, I don't have, like, I'm not a sensitive person, you know, like I'm not going to have hurt feelings easily. I'm pretty tough, and like, it's like, just tell me what you think. Like, I'm probably not going to agree with you, but I'm cool. Like, I don't know. That's just how I'm wired, I
Right.
guess.
We all need to be wired differently. It's a very healthy way that you are. Now, Ashira, you're in Israel where you don't deal with, it's the least anti-Semitic country in the world is Israel, ironically enough, right? And you were talking about racism being its own different thing. It's just sort of equal opportunity assholery in Israel, right? It's not about black, white. It's just like everybody's pegged for being Russian or whatever they are. But you still also are American and you deal with a whole audience all over the world. So how have you dealt with your own mental health concerns?
I have to echo what Rachel said and just say, for me personally, social media comments and all the hate on social media, that does not affect my mental health. What has affected my mental health is living through October 7th, going to Kibbutz Be'eri 2 weeks after,
Mhm.
and seeing, you know, blood everywhere, seeing the weapons still on the ground, going into children's rooms, seeing all their books and seeing that children live there. And then, sorry, and then also seeing that there are bullet holes going through their rooms, there are blood stains all over their bed. That has traumatized me in a way that I'm still unpacking. Coming home to California for a month has been a way for me to cope. I want to encourage everyone to, like, you know, be with people that make you feel safe. And my mom keeps saying to me, like, why do you, I keep saying to her, oh, I love being at home. I feel so safe, you know, being an American and having the privilege of not having to live through a war that's on the ground. I know I lived through 9/11, but I've never lived, you know, having a war on my territory, and having to experience that as an American living in Israel is completely new to me. And so navigating that trauma experience is what affects my mental health every day. Not knowing that I have PTSD, just like, you know, I think most of Israel does, you know, and just knowing that we had to jump into a PR war right after. I mean, I wasn't on social media prior to October 7th. I was a political moderator, but I just had LinkedIn. And so right after, I'm right on the quad. I'm right on defending ourselves. None of us and no one in Israel got to sit and unpack what happened to us. I don't think people are unpacking what happened to us even now. We're just going, we're just fighting, we're just going. And so that is what is having an effect on mental health. People's nasty comments online, who cares about that? Like seeing our children dead in the streets, that is what is traumatizing.
Well, there's going to be a lot of delayed trauma in Israel that's going to have to be unpacked and dealt with. We're seeing that.
Ashira, I really appreciate what I see April. Let me get this little thought in. I really appreciate what you're acknowledging around PTSD and the experience of being in Be'eri. I've been to Be'eri myself. As somebody that has PTSD from the U.S. Army serving in Iraq, stepping into Be'eri, I was like, I've seen this before. I've smelled this before. I dealt with my trauma from being in the army. Now I know when I get home, I'm going to have to unpack this. I can't carry it around with me because I know the side effects of what happens as a result of that. And there's all kinds of mental health initiatives happening in Israel right now. But what I want to, like, the little twist that I was thinking about is that when I was like, I think I need to I'm going to get a therapist because I don't want to put this on anyone that I know or love. And when I started like interviewing therapists, I was like, okay, so you need to know I'm both Black and I'm Jewish and I traveled to Israel. Let me know right now if this is going to work or not. You know, because I'm like, first of all, it needs to be somebody that's Black. So because they need to understand my lived experience. But then they also need to understand that I'm unequivocally a Zionist and travel to Israel all the time and will continue to do so. So like I think that some of and Dr. Pryce was talking about this with the triple consciousness of like having to think through all of these layers, even when we're thinking about our mental health and seeking support. April, to you.
So some of you might notice if you follow me at all that one of my many things that I focus on is Jewish mental health in light of anti-Semitism. Why? My mother is a retired clinical social worker, but also um, I experienced extreme depression after I was canceled after May of 2021. And so I went right into early menopause. I gained 20 pounds I couldn't lose. I couldn't get out of bed for 9 months. I joke that I wouldn't have survived the Holocaust because I was so shocked with the onslaught. I had to delete a Twitter account I'd had for since it opened, right? And I hid. I took all the pictures down of my kids. You will not find pictures of my family on most of the internet. I've really been there were death threats. The FBI got involved. It was a scary time. Rachel, I should have gone with your methodology and Chaya Lev's, which is humor, because nothing ended up happening, right? I got a dog. I've never had a dog. I have a crazy alarm system. I spent so much money trying to protect my family. And Nate, to your point, yes, we need to be able to have therapists who understand and will not reject our Zionism. And we're seeing in those spaces that Zionists, there are a list for, a Zionist list for therapists, doctors, authors, where they're trying to ban us. So for those of you who are looking for mental health, I want to point you to mentalhealthisrael.co. They are giving 6 free sessions to everybody who is Jewish in any language, to jewishtherapists.org. They have Jewish therapists, whether you're a Zionist Jew or a non-Zionist Jew. They at least will be able to connect you with somebody who meets your needs, and that includes Black Zionist Jewish therapists. And then there's Kesher Shalom that has other interesting products and topics. So there is a lot out there, and expect me to post and repost some of their offerings, but you might as well follow them yourself. And I'm always going to plug Colonics, because that is the only thing that got me out of my depression, was going and doing a liquid fasting and Colonics, and it literally sucked the shit out of my knees, because
I don't know.
there was so many
I've done
toxins.
some real brave stuff
Okay,
in my life.
April, I'm going to DM you. I want to hear more about this.
And I will tell everybody, I went to We Care Spa, and I'm in there. I'm also, because it was so transformative, I'm in their documentary, because it literally changed my life. Like in 3 days, I was back in my body, not my original body, but at least not with that brain fog of depression.
I'm going to remind you all I'm a registered nurse. So if any of you guys need a hand, I mean, I
No.
Wait.
You're a few blocks away from me. You want to make that a Malava Malka?
If anybody needs a therapist, though, I think I hit a couple of those qualifiers right there. I am open to new clients, but no, I'm good on that.
I've given my own wife enemas because she's got ulcerative colitis.
We're Jewish. We have stomach issues, y'all.
Yeah.
And the epigenetic trauma, I don't care if your soul was there at Sinai or you've got that Ashkenazi stomach.
Yeah.
It's real. I mean, I'm allergic to all
I
the
definitely
things.
don't have an Ashkenazi stomach.
Good for you.
My wife talks about this, like she's giving speeches for the Crohn's Colitis Foundation. She normalizes pooping, so don't worry about it. I'm not getting into hot water by bringing this up.
No.
Yeah.
Bodily
gosh.
functions are our birthright.
Oh gosh.
April, did you realize when you just name checked when you just name checked Israel, what was the organization? Did you realize that is Rona, the one that asked the question? That's her.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I love Rona.
Yes.
Yes, no.
She's
Yes,
the
sorry.
one. So when you said that, when you said mental health is real, is like that's the person who just asked this question. She's the founder.
Yes, and I've spoken on her site, and I've met with her at the Nova Festival. And
go.
the other thing, I just have to say, I have read a lot. I hate horror movies. I have never read anything so horrific as what happened on October 7th in my life. I haven't even seen it in a movie. But again, I don't watch horror movies, other than a pogrom that happened in Eastern Europe that involved cats that I'm not going to horrify anyone with. So when we talk about terror in our minds and just that epigenetic trauma that just keeps on going in our minds, I cannot get some of that language out of my head, and it repeats itself. And the horrors that knowing that 101 people are still maybe suffering some of that gets at me every day. I have hostage posters in my house. I have names up in my home. I have art from Nomi Gal, around. She draws pictures of the hostages, and so I don't want to leave my home, but I think I re-traumatize myself on a regular basis, especially because I talk about anti-Semitism in our history so much, and we do owe it to ourselves to, find a Dr. Yehudah Pryce or someone who can come in and do that work with us.
Well, I promise you mental health is going to get its own episode, if not more, because it obviously needs more than just to be a fast throw-in question. But don't go anywhere, April, because Nate actually wants to ask a question, direct a question to you to start.
It's what's kind of funny is that, a mental health question is so serious and important, but the way that we all were able to get some real humor out of that, like, I'm really appreciating it. And by the way, I will give my one little bit that I appreciate around self-care is the B12 shot. Don't sleep on the B12 shot.
Yeah.
What is that?
It's
energy boost.
It's an energy boost. It lasts about a week, and I was like, "Yo, why didn't anybody tell me about these?"
I've given that to my wife too.
They give them at We Care.
Yeah, I mean, I use ClassPass. It's not an endorsement, but I use my ClassPass points. Go down the street from my house, get the thing done. I'm out in 2 minutes. So this next question, shifting gears back to sort of what we were talking about earlier. This is from Trisha Krieger.
Trisha Krieger, that's actually my wife's cousin, Patricia Krieger,
yeah. And this is for you specifically, April, and I'll read it verbatim. Can you ask April how the concept of DEI, which is intended to be about equity, has gotten so warped into finding a scapegoat in Judaism?
Right, the elephant in the room. So let's address it head on, starting with you since you're the expert.
Okay, so I want to break down a couple of things, and this will take a while. You can edit it however you want. Affirmative action is not DEI. DEI is diversity, equity, and inclusion. Affirmative action is a series of laws that were put into place to, make sure that there's equity in our hiring practices. That's inviting people to the party. Diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging, anti-racism, and accessibility and civility are what happens when you get there. If I'm at the party, are they playing my music? Do I get to be the DJ? And we use this example in shul. Are you welcoming me here? Like, here's where the kitchen is, here's where all the stuff is, open the fridge, or is it mine and I get to put my feet up on the couch, right? So we're not going to get rid of DEI. It's been around for too long. It's had different iterations. And one of the reasons I got so depressed when I was told that I was a white supremacist and I was anti-racist, whatever, all those things that I was accused of doing, is that I have a DEI heart where I'm thinking of people all the time that are different from me. In my whole career, I did not think about Jewish identity in my own DEI practice. So I can't be mad at DEI professionals who haven't done it now. But the vast majority of us care about everybody. They just don't know how to do it right. Are there anti-Semites in every single profession? Absolutely. Have I met heads of DEI for big companies that were clearly anti-Semitic and told me, I'm just going to tell you right now, we're never going to invite you in here to talk about that topic. And because, wow, right? So are there those people? There absolutely are. Is there a movement in DEI to find a scapegoat for some of the things, the ways that things work, that false binary of oppressed oppressor? Yes. And I'm going to say something a little bit controversial that a lot of people aren't going to like right now. After George Floyd and after his murder and after any big thing happens where DEI is asked to come and show up, there is a mass hiring of people who maybe never did this before, maybe never studied it, maybe never learned exactly how to integrate all of these things, maybe just have the right background, skin tone, wrote an article on something, but they don't have the full understanding of what DEI, as it's supposed to encompass everybody. And that means white people, that means queer people, that means disabled people, that means people with all their abilities. That means everybody. DEI is supposed to be the party for us all. And when we have decided that one group is the oppressor and one group is marginalized, then how do we deal with the intersections when somebody is a white person who is poor, disabled, first, English, is their second or third language. And then we're just, applying these American frameworks onto other cultures entirely. It's, like I said, it's wildly inappropriate. So I feel that DEI has absorbed a number of people who are doing it for the first time. Not to say that that's not okay. I was at one point a person who was doing it for the first time, but I refused to do it without proper training. So there are folks who are doing this job without proper training, based on something that is not always based on a DEI background. And so they're looking for heuristics. They're looking for simplicity. They're looking for, okay, how can I virtue signal that I get this? And right now, the biggest virtue signal that we have, at least in this country, is anti-Semitism and anti-Israel rhetoric, not based on the facts of thousands of years of history, not based on the facts on the ground, just based on, so much rhetoric that it's hard to sift through. And people don't want to show up not knowing what they don't know or looking like they don't know when they've been tasked to be the head of this important thing. And so I invite those DEI professionals who don't know how to talk about Judaism or Jewish identity or care and want to do better. I have a free class on LinkedIn right now. It's the only class on anti-Semitism. You can DM me. We can talk about this. I'm more than happy to help those of you who don't know how to deal with Jewish identity and DEI, because it's been made into a false binary, of oppressed oppressor, and we are one of the most oppressed communities in the history of mankind. And so it is incredible to me that that we've been oversimplified into this demonized group. It's wrong. It's a lie, and some DEI professionals have fallen for it. But I think overall, the crux of DEI and the desire for DEI to protect all people is still there. And the smart people in the room know that they don't know what they don't know, and they will reach out to experts and subject matter experts and Jews who are majority Jews, not anti-Zionist Jews, because that, again, when we talk about tokenization, when you tokenize anti-Zionist Jewish voices, that is tokenizing that minority. Not to say that their voices don't matter, of course they do, but when you tokenize and center anti-Zionist voices, you are signaling to the rest of the Jews in your community or in your company or in your culture that you are not caring about representation, because we wouldn't do that with any other minority group. And so that's where I think DEI
Tokenization is
gets
a
it
form
wrong.
of racism. I just want to throw it out there. Tokenization itself is a form of racism, a form of prejudice. So we got to call it out for what it is. And I will say that if you are an anti-Zionist, well, let me qualify that more, right? Of what sort of anti-Zionism, but if you're not connected to any sort of normative communal Jewish spaces, and yet you use your identity primarily to attack the Jewish community, there's an issue within that itself, right there, right? That was my whole issue with Candace Owens a lot of time, right? Is that not saying she didn't have any sort of insight into this and that, but if you make a living off talking bad about your own people, there's something off there, right? So I just want to throw that out there.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna hop in right after that because I made a whole video on it. You saw I got a lot of likes on Instagram. Yeah, listen, if you got a Black person that's harming other Black people, that means that person is, if they're not Jewish, they're one step away from being anti-Semite because they have no morals. They're morally bankrupt. They're morally corrupt. If you will attack your own, that means you already have something wrong with you. And the whole Candace Owens situation, like there were multiple issues, but we could see it. Sean King, the way that he consistently disrespected Black women for years, and Kanye West saying that slavery was a good thing. Like we saw the writing was on the wall. And as you like, when you're Black people, you can see it. But it's also the same thing if someone is Black and Jewish. Like just because they're Jewish and Black doesn't mean that they also support, their own. If someone Black and Jewish is doing harm to other Black Jews, you got a problem. There's something wrong with them. And sooner or later, they're going to go off the deep end into something really disturbing and some sort of extremist type of ideology and activities. But yeah, I just wanted to just say that, like, yes, that's how you know if this person is harming their own, you got a problem.
I think something else that April, that you were speaking about reminded me of is that within some DEI practitioner spaces, there isn't space for people to define or explain what anti-Semitism looks like for them, in the same way that, as a Black man, I don't want anybody to tell me what racism feels like or looks like, smells like. And I think that that's the other rub, is that by like not having enough Jews being within DEI spaces, where there's a loss, because it's like, okay, well, what is this theoretical thing called anti-Semitism that people are telling me about? I have no idea what it actually looks like, but I can imagine that for all of us that are on this call, we know what it feels like, and it's not too distant from what racism feels like. And so I mean, I just kind of want to highlight that, of like the missed opportunity there within this particular arena of a deeper understanding of anti-Semitism and how it shows up.
And I would piggyback onto what you just said, Nate, that it's not just not enough Jews in a space, but it's not enough of the right Jews. And I know, and so for example, there is somebody named Verena Busser. She's been talking to me thanks to my efforts for months. She's a non-Jewish German PhD scholar on the concept of genocide. She reached out to me and she said, Boaz, I love what you're doing. Can we do an episode about genocide? I said, yes, but what do you mean? She said, I'm in the space where this is what my community talks about, my community of scholarship. And we're literally like, there's such an overwhelming amount of it calling what's happening in Israel towards Gaza a genocide. And she's like, it doesn't look like genocide. It doesn't sound like genocide. It doesn't smell like genocide. It's not genocide. And she said, even the Jewish scholars in my field are saying it. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? So sometimes it's not enough to just say we need Jews in the space. We need the right Jews in the space, because there's a lot of the as a Jews out there, and it's fucking offensive to the rest of us. So I am trying to build an episode with her, with different various people who are experts in genocide. So I really appreciate that. I want to just mention one other thing for people watching. I knew exactly what you meant, April, but for people watching, I want to clarify what April was saying when she was saying we need to have that a bunch of people who are getting hired are maybe not actually fully qualified and so on. If I understand right, you're not specifically talking about the people getting DEI hires. You're talking about the people who are hired in roles like yourself as the DEI experts to help run the ship.
Exactly. So I would see somebody's, there would be all these people all of a sudden trying to link in with me, and I'm looking at their title and they're like the head of DEI. And then before that, might have been somebody's admin or somebody's, not that there's anything wrong with that kind of elite, but it was just like, wait, where did you get your education to become the head of DEI in this space? Like, everybody has to take a step. I took steps, but I refused it. When Nestle asked me to head up DEI for their US market, I was like, no, I don't know anything about this. And they were like, they had to ask me 3 times and promise me top tier education on the subject before I would accept that role. And I don't blame anybody for accepting the role, but I think companies owe it to themselves to get the right people in those roles. And if you're Jewish and you want to do this, I think you should absolutely go into DEI. We need more Jewish voices in DEI and DEI practitioners. If you don't know about anti-Semitism, you need to come to folks who are Jewish, who are Zionists, because that's the majority of voices, to help understand what anti-Semitism is, how it works. Yes, Nate, it is more of a racialized bigotry today. It is not, you can't think of this as a religious bigotry, because you're not shooting up a synagogue because of the Torah portion they're reading. It's because it's a place to find Jews. Israel is a container for Jews. It is a very, very simple equation. And unfortunately, it does operate very much like a racist bigotry, racialized bigotry today, in that people, you can't, as you know, it used to be more of a religious one, but now you can't convert out of it, right? Even the converts, the conversos, they couldn't get married for generations, because they still knew that way back in their history, they had Jews in their families. So it's kind of like, now you can't convert out of Judaism, or be a Jewish identity rather. It's just who you are. It's this, thing. And it's true, right? I mean,
Nate's going to bring us around to some last questions before we sum up, but I just want to mention something that has entered my mind 3 times during this talk, and I've been trying not to interrupt you guys, because you guys have been awesomely interrupting.
You've been on your best behavior.
I have.
You've been trying not to interrupt, but you've been interrupting, sir.
That's right. I have been.
On his best behavior.
I've been trying not to interrupt. I
You've been interrupting, sir.
Yes, I have been. Not nearly as much as I could be. So,
Oh,
what I will say though is that I'm enjoying this immensely. I've thought of this 3 times, so I'm just going to throw this out there so it's not a fourth. Hollywood, I am so sick and tired, as all of you, I'm sure, are, of the representation of Jews, because it sure as hell never looks like any of you. It looks a lot more like me. It's always Adam Brody and Seth Rogen and people like that, and that's every single one. And those end up even annoying me, not even just because they're white every time, but because usually they're basically the as a Jew Jews, right? It's really annoying. They're never wearing the kippas and just happen to be your your forget doctor, but they never happen to be other things. And Yehudah's gonna have to go, which I understand, but I just
bye,
want there to be a good
Yehudah.
representation.
Shavuot
Yehudah,
Bye, Nino
Tov.
thank you.
Brown.
Yehudah, do you want to say any last words
You
before
know
you go?
what, Baruch Hashem, thank you for bringing us
Bye,
all
Nino
together
Brown.
in this particular space, being in this space with so many thought leaders and people who are making an impact on society, and us showing what it means to be Jewish, active, and also being allies of Jews as well, and all the important work that people have been doing. But just to be in this space and having this particular conversation, it's a good way to start my day. I'm on the West Coast, so I'm starting my day. So I appreciate y'all, and just keep up the good work. And I'm hoping to connect with y'all in similar spaces and similar work to impact the world, because that's what we need to do, because that's what Jews do, and we just do it in a positive way. The world will be a better place.
Thank you,
All
Yehudah.
right.
I'll see you in person.
Okay, sounds good.
Doc-
Yeah.
Dr. Nino Brown, baby. Dr. Nino Brown.
Nate just brought up the colonics again. All right. So,
Oh my gosh.
all right. So
Boaz,
Nate,
you ain't no good. Telling
no,
all your wife's business.
my wife would not tell you I was either. All right. So you go ahead. Bring us back with some of the last questions before we sum up. Yeah.
Gotta get my composure back.
Poker face.
And I think I'm getting kicked out of my dance studio, by the way, too.
Okay,
I'm at my
okay.
dance studio. I
Well,
think I'm getting kicked out. So.
So this question is a little bit along the same lines, a little bit different. Before I get to this question, I just want to acknowledge something, that the folks that we have invited onto this call are by no way the only thought leaders that have opinions that could contribute to this sort of conversation. Just want to make that point blank clear, that there's a lot of folks that have the depth and understanding to be able to talk about this, that aren't invited and are not invited. It's not that they weren't invited to the cookout type thing. There's only so many boxes on the screen that we want to have it in and actually still have a conversation. Okay. So this last question comes from, is this Daryl Temkin?
Yeah, Daryl Temkin.
Finally, I got one name right.
Yeah. Brilliant guy.
Make sure I get the rest of this right. All right. So amidst the landscape where there's so much anti-Semitism and bigotry coming to our community externally, is there concern that the very real issue of prejudice and discrimination within many Jewish communities will be swept under the rug? So essentially, with all of the anti-Semitism and bigotry that we're experiencing throughout broader society, is there a sense that within the Jewish community, some of the work that many of us have been doing to create more belonging is going to go out the window?
Which is probably more of an
I will
American.
just say I'm gonna start right there, because I'm gonna speak to it from a spiritual perspective. We need to spend less time worrying about them and more time about us and how we're going to bring our light. I watch Jewish creators all day long, besides maybe Elisheva and a couple of people more. Elisheva is really good about this. Talk about they. We're missing the point. It's us. We have to do work from internally to spread that light out. Do you understand what I'm saying? Are you guys picking up what I'm putting down? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So listen. So where I'm going here with this is that, once again, there is work to be done, but you're not going to fix anti-Semitism. You're not going to fix anti-Semitism, because the Jewish people themselves, we ourselves have work to do. If we want to fix anti-Semitism, we got to stay tight, strong, be educated, know Torah. Half of the people don't even know what they're talking about. When you say an as a Jew, their identity is bagel and lox Jew. I go to South, that's bagel and lox Jew. So that's why when they see someone like me walk in, I personally, minding my own business, I threaten them, because they have nothing but a bagel and a lox. We don't even know who we are. So what I think we need to do, if we want to fix anti-Semitism, we need to find out who we are. And if we find out who we are, we won't have this Black Jew issue and that Jew issue because we know who our Israel is. So I'm going to say, take responsibility and start with us and quit worrying about the they. Because the they is part of the issue. It's not the issue. We got to start with us.
You know, this is something that I often think about, and I really appreciate it. It's like you got one, first of all, you got to put your own mask on first. Is something that I constantly trying to remind myself. And two, it's the idea that you got to take care of your own house before you go out and try to fix something down the street. I think those are two very, very important things to think about. And so I really do appreciate this question. So it means that in some ways we still recognize that there's work to be done within our Jewish community, and it can't just be an outward facing look. What else y'all got?
Okay.
Well, I'll connect this to the other. There's another sort of partial piece of this question that I'll ask from somebody else, but they go together.
Yep.
And I want somebody to jump in with this. So Erica Bachnick, she's a good influencer online. She actually teaches American Jewish University, teaches a lot about mental health and so on. So she wanted to know what are ways Ashkenazi majority communities can make our spaces welcoming and celebrating Black Jews. Because that's really what the note I want to finish on here is I want to let us stop. We know that there are problems within America, separate problems from that in Israel. We know that when you go into an Ashkenaz shul in America, you stick out like a sore thumb if you look like any of you, and you don't stick out like a sore thumb if you look like me. So how can we make things more about us and less about them, like Chaya was just saying? How can we actually start doing that today for people who are watching this?
I think one of the saddest things that I learned the last time I was in Israel is that the Beta Israeli community is losing their culture. And so I want to see the Ashken normativity in these United States to shift a little bit. The Beta Israeli and other communities that have survived, and the Sephardic and Mizrahi communities.
Sorry, April, can you just restart but explain what Beta Israel is? Because I've never heard that term before.
Okay, Beta Israel means House of Israel. It's not second tier. It doesn't mean like Alpha Beta. It's our language, Beta Israeli, the House of Israel. Ethiopian Jews, one of the saddest things that I've seen is the loss of the Ethiopian Jewish culture and traditions. Because of no, what?
I don't agree with that. We just had SIG.
No, we just had SIG, but what I heard when I went to Israel.
Mean?
When I went to Israel, what I heard from some of the Ethiopian Jews that I met there was that they were merging into more of whatever the Israeli Jewish community life was versus how they experience Jewish identity, just even the way they do Shabbat and music and some of these other things. I would like to see in our shuls across the world that we integrate all of our cultures into some of these things, whether it's Sephardic music, learning about Ethiopian traditions. They were able to hold it down for thousands of years without any external input. What can we learn from them? And that is, so I want to learn about all the heritage. I want to bring in the music. I want to bring in the food. I want to come into a space and just hear, it's good to see you, put your feet up. Not where's the kitchen? Do you need to know where the kitchen is? Or to have an entire shul turn around because we were on CP time and stare at us, like whack-a-mole, like looking at like all these people looking at us to turn around to see my family. Like, what are you all doing here for High Holy Days? This happened many years ago, but it's a feeling, and part of that feeling is yes, Ashkenazi is the majority here, but how are we integrating all of the different the richness of all of who we are? Beta Israeli, Asian Jews, Latin Jews, and more into these spaces because there are mixed families in those things. It's not just interfaith families, right?
It something that you said just pops into my mind. It's all about normalization of things. what is it? Normalization by immersion. So my daughter, she's now going to we've done the controversial decision of having, even though I'm modern Orthodox, of having our daughter going to LAUSD public schools here, in large part because it's just not affordable. It costs a Mercedes a kid in Los Angeles to go to school, and oh no, but they give scholarships, so it's only a Honda Civic. It's only a Honda Civic each kid for a year. I mean, and I'm not exaggerating, and that's after scholarship. So she's going to LAUSD. We're doing our thing, and we figured it out. First thing I did when she went to her new school is I got on the phone with the teacher who wanted to talk to me because she got to know Addie. And I speak to her and I said, listen, I know you can't see me, but if you were seeing me right now in person, you'd see a yarmulke, a kippah on my head, and you'd see somebody who went to Orthodox Jewish day school and high school growing up. I didn't have the experience my daughter is about to have, and presumably my son's going to have. What I need from you is a guarantee and an assurance that you're going to be my eyes over there, that are going to be able to tell me if things get anti-Semitic, anti-Israel. And I'm talking not just about her classmates who are little first graders, but I'm talking about the parents and I'm talking about the teachers. And I said, I just need to know what's happening because I don't want her to ever feel a desire to hide her Jewishness, right? This is where I'm going with it, right? I don't want nobody should feel embarrassed about their Jewishness, about their blackness, about their anythingness, whatever makes them them. And she said to me very wisely, these are children, all right? Forget about the adults right now. The children right now, they see you come on campus with your kippah, they're going to look. They're going to do that thing they did to April's family when they walked in. They're all going to do that dramatic turn around thing when somebody enters a room, right, with sound effects. And what happens is that you just need to normalize this, come on campus a couple of times, show them yourselves as another parent. Within a couple of times, you're going to be just another parent. That kippah is not going to mean anything more than somebody else what they do. Sure enough, I've come to campus. I don't even think it took me more than 2 times now, and I am greeted as warmly as anybody else on campus by the other parents, by the other teachers. It actually helps me because everybody knows who I am right away, right? It's sort of like being the one black person in the room, the one obvious Jewish person in the room. Everybody knows me right away. And it's actually lovely and it's been welcoming. And she was right. So what did she do? That speaks to what April just said. When April said, I want to have black food from our cultures over there, dance, music, all of it just be normalized. She said to me, come on in and teach us about the culture, teach us about the religion. I said, you're okay with that in public school? I could teach about religion. She's like, culture, whatever, tomato, tomato, right? So I go ahead. And my mom has come with me and she taught the whole class the story of the Maccabees. And she brought in our menorah, our Chanukiah from the house. And I taught them about dreidel and the gimel and the chet and right. And I went through all of this and it's as normal as anything now. So I absolutely love the idea of just bringing all of our cultures in there and just normalizing the shit out of things and making there be less reason for everybody to turn around and see that weird person who just entered the room and that space that doesn't seem like them. We don't always have to be others, but when we are others, can't it be more welcoming when it does happen?
And one thing I'll add here for our audience in particular is the importance of being curious without it being oppressive. So it's important to be curious about the people that are in your community. And by curious, I'm not saying going up to somebody and being like, so how are you Jewish? Which one of your parents is Jewish? But it's the so like what's your favorite
Where are you
Shabbos?
from?
What's your favorite Shabbos food? Where are you from?
Yeah.
Like these questions that we would ask anyone else instead of just immediately going into this,
Right.
like, so did you convert? Because like,
Right.
I would be like, did you ask everybody else here that? Because like we don't know each other like that.
Because I
Like,
can
I'm
guarantee
not
you half
gonna
of the
tell
people in
you
this room
my,
did.
Are you
like,
here
well,
to
I'm
find
not
a
gonna tell you
husband?
my life story, and we have
Oh
not
yeah.
like, what was that question about a husband?
Are you here to find a husband?
Oh
Yes,
yeah,
I
that's a valid question.
am.
That's
Hey,
a
you know what?
valid
That says
question.
a lot about inclusion. If somebody in the shul is
No,
sidebar.
no, like asking a black,
But
the only reason that they would be there would be to find a
Oh,
partner.
no, no.
but
Well,
but
minor sidebar.
I
When I was in the military, I went to a shul in Louisiana, and this lovely couple was like, "You need to meet my granddaughter. she can take you around town. She's single, and it didn't dawn on me till I got
They said good.
to go back to
Okay.
base, and I was like, oh, that's what that was. That's an inclusive synagogue, and they were trying to hook me up with their granddaughter. Anyway, sidebar. Sorry about that.
It was, and the end of that story was not a match, not a shitta.
It wasn't going to be a match for me, but like it didn't dawn on me that that's what they were trying to do.
But
But can we just I also just want to add something. Like I have to say I didn't have the same I'm not saying that it doesn't happen and we know it happens. I didn't have the same experience in my Jewish community. I've been in Chabad. I'm going where I go. People say a few things here and there, but the reality of it is we also sometimes we walk in the door with the chip up here ready. We trying to brace ourselves. Just go and be you, because at the end of the day, you're also contributing to that. Like, you don't belong because you feel like you don't belong, because you think they don't think you belong. And at the end of the day, the Jewish community, and one thing about the Jewish community, we are so loving and so amazing. And I'm not saying that people have not had their bad experiences, but I feel like if you just go in there and even just understand that you're special and that you have a little different vibe. I mean, like, look, if there's a cookout, an all black cookout in Texas, and somebody coming there not black holding a potato salad with raisins, we're gonna all stop. We're gonna stop. We're gonna stop and look. So why all of a sudden we trying to pretend like, I mean, we're gonna be like, oh, she Tina Marie, she definitely up in here is C. Rick James. I mean, we also have our own, yes, because we see somebody white come in there. So yeah. I'm not, I mean, but I'm just saying, I know the analogy doesn't quite match, but I'm just saying, like, sometimes too, like, we have to also be forgiving to those that of a space that we're going into. We have to be forgiving and understand that for a lot of people, they just don't know. And some people, they do know, they're just not ready, because people have just started really, oh, you Ethiopian in America? I always used to get, you're an Ethiopian Jew, as if that's the only brown type of Jew. There's millions of African types of, you're Ethiopian. I'm like, look at me. Do I look Ethiopian?
Well, if you guys,
I'm bloated. I'm bloated. I'm Nigerian. Fufu, baby. I'm fufu. Fufu.
Chaya, we've talked about it. You're going to do an Igbo episode with me, right? We're going to talk about it. That's its own thing. Well,
no, this has been a good episode.
This is fun. This is the tone that I would like it to feel like. I truly hope that every one of our episodes is going to be able to be this lively. This is what I wanted, and I think and I'm glad I asked you all to interrupt each other and do this, because this is what I wanted. Listen, I want to start to have last thoughts from each of you, just like last sort of summation, last whatever it is on whatever you want to say, sort of your last thoughts before Nate and I give ours. So let's go ahead and start with you, Miss Footlocker. Chaya, why don't you give us
Hamburglar.
Oh, you nasty. It's Roshan. By the way, you nasty. By the way, hold on, tell everybody. Because I was gonna call myself the Hamburglar too.
Last thoughts.
First of all, I want to thank you guys for having me on. It's been one of those crazy things that people stop asking me, because the internet is like such it's like a fake place and a real place. It's like the Matrix and not the Matrix. Like some moments of the internet feel over, and I really believe that our Jewish community is a good community with the few people that like Elisheva, the one person and their friend that make it loud, and it's just like I want to say two things, just speaking to our listeners. Do not beg for people to see you. I get this a lot in Israel. We deserve to exist. I'm not going to say Israel has the right to exist. I'm not going to say as a Black person I have the right to exist, and definitely not as a Jew. So when you're in these communities, you don't have to beg to be seen. You just have to show up and do you. You just have to show up and be seen. It's going to be okay. The issues that people have, they're going to have to adjust. And I think that's what I want to put out to the listeners. Anybody that's listening to me is, Don't beg anybody to see you. Just be you. Just do you. I promise you. I promise you in the end, it's going to all be all right.
Yeah, what's that shirt that I always wear?
What size you wearing?
I'm a large. I'm a large all day. Sometimes extra large for the shoulders, but I've got this shirt that I often wear that says "Be you, they will adjust." Like, just show up as yourself. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
be who you
I
are.
mean, yeah, and fight for your table. And I'm not talking about a Jew. If we want stuff, we gotta snatch edges, wigs, hijabs, and snoods. You gotta do whatever we gotta do. And yeah, I'm just saying that's why I'm just so grateful. Like sometimes I don't live in America because the political correctness, like no, snatch a wig, I'll definitely snatch a couple of hijabs. I don't care, and I'm snatching your wig. That's what we're gonna do. I'm pulling it off. What's this? Because what? Don't laugh, girl, because I don't care. I was born canceled. I don't want them to get you. I don't want them to come for you. But I don't care about cancel. But I know y'all are some nice young ladies. Nice. Elisheva's a nice young lady. April's been
I've
canceled, but
already
she's
been canceled.
I hope that when people watch this, I hope that they will understand that Black Jewish people, we are not a monolith. We all come with our unique set of skills and experiences and perspectives. And this whole event is just proof of that. I hope that people will understand that when it comes to Black Jewish people, that our voices can offer so much more than just fitting into a diversity quota. People should also understand that we don't have to only talk about Black Jewish issues. We can talk about other things as well. And because of our identity, we have this intersectionality that allows us to see the same event from multiple perspectives. And we can bring new results, new insights, new perspectives. And that is what we bring when we come with our Black, Jewish, American identity. So I hope that this episode will open some people's eyes and the right kind of Jews will be uplifted. And there will never be an event or a panel where we're not represented because we're out here doing the same work. We should be sitting with everyone else, talking with everyone else. We should be seen.
One thing I would add to that is don't just invite us for the panel. Invite us all the time for all the things to be a part of the community. And I think that that's also something that gets lost in translation. We're thought about when it's time for event planning and not about when it's time to even just start setting the table to have the strategy session. My degree is in business. I should be talking about all the aspects of my business understanding or military understanding and not just being hey, Nate, I'm a black Jew coming to speak about something. So I really appreciate what you shared.
Yeah, if we talk about the Blackness as we are today, then we can talk about the Blackness, but it better damn well not be the only thing we ever talk about.
That's right.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for that, Elisheva. April or Rachel, do one of you, I don't mind whoever wants to go next, want to give your final thoughts. And Rachel, you might want to take a second and check clean your camera or something.
My light went out. That's
Oh, is
why.
that what it is? Okay, because you went from being crisp to blurry. That's all.
I lost my light.
Okay, no worries. So now you look like immortal like the rest of us. So go ahead and do you want to give us your final thoughts?
Sure. I mean, I will just piggyback off of what Elisheva just said, what Nate just said about not just including us in spaces of talking about diversity or talking about just being Black and Jewish or a Black Jew, but including us just to include us as being Jewish, because there's so much, like each of us have so much to offer and we are passionate about different things. We are experts in different things and we have a lot to bring to the table. I think being, Black is just a drop in the bucket of who we are as a people. And I also want to say that when it comes to the internet and Instagram and pro-Israel activists and influencers, I think that we're doing a really good job at showing diversity. I know we've been pushed into this position of having to do that and having to prove that, the Jewish community is diverse. But I will say, I do think there's an authenticity with it. And I think that we are doing our best and we're doing a good job. So I just want to say that, because I did make some negative comments before, which I stand by, but as a whole on the internet and what we're doing there, I think we're doing a good job.
Good. It's a good, positive, but realistic note to finish on for you. I appreciate that, and thank you for doing this for us twice. And I think the way that we managed it was, you can tell me your thoughts afterwards because you experienced it both ways. But I think it was a lot more able to sort of jump in and be a part of it constantly, right?
Yeah.
We learned a lot the first time around.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people.
There's a lot of people, but just the management of it now, I think that jumping on over each other. And April, would you like to give us your final, very informed thoughts?
I have a few, just based on what I heard everyone say. I think as Jews, we really do have to do a better job of incorporating Jews in all hues. Is it Jared would like to say? No, it's not Jared. Who's Jews in all hues? Somebody help me.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm name blind, so I'm going to go back and re-record this. So, what's Jared's last name? Because I want him to get credit.
What are we talking about? Jared who?
I'm blanking on his last name also.
Okay, but okay, as long as we say. So, I want to just emphasize in closing that we really do have to include everybody and think about Jews. What Jewish looks like is Jews in all hues, as Jared would say, and also include, our Orthodox community. And we've talked about this as like, why are we having things on a Saturday or on Shabbos? Why aren't we having appropriate food? And this includes not just for the Jewish community, which is not doing a good job of this, but also if you are a DEI professional and you are in or hosting something, even if you think there aren't Jews there, because a lot of Jews are not out at work, offer an option. You need to offer options for food. We need to offer a check the box. Are you Black? Are you Jewish? When we're talking about who we are in representation, Jewish should be part of a cultural heritage, not just a religion. Pew Research will tell you that many of us are, see this as a cultural versus a religious thing. And Jew hatred is less about our religion and more about who we are as a people and things that we're accused of doing. And so my final note is on Black Jewish solidarity, because it is a huge thing in this country. We have folks like Van Jones speaking on it with the Exodus Project. And when we're talking about Blacks and Jews and we forget Black Jews, you are not having a complete conversation. And so if you are having anything for us without us, it is not an equitable conversation. It is not an anti-racist conversation. It is just not. And if you're only including white presenting Jews or the Ashkenazi normativity as the Jewish voice, then you're also missing the boat. There should be multi-ethnic Jews in the Jewish conversation about Black Jewish solidarity, because Iranian Jews, and Latinx Jews and others should be in those conversations also. It shouldn't just also be Black Jews. So I look forward, Boaz, to you having conversations with all the multi-ethnic Jewish identities so that we can really see representation on the screen of who we are as a people, because I don't think people really understand that. And it's important to have these positive images of our Jewish mishpucha out there. So thank you for doing this.
That's the next, that you're leading us into our part 3. When Nate and I started talking about this, my original thing was like, okay, I'm going to do an episode with the Black community. Enough people have asked me about it. And I said, great idea. Nate, do this with me. It didn't take long before he realized. I was like, oh, wait, it's going to have to be 2 episodes. Oh, wait, it's going to have to be 3 episodes. That's how we came up with it's a different conversation about Black Jews as it is about the Black community and the Jewish community, which is what the 2 we've done. But then it was an entirely different one when I said, what about all these Jutinas, right? What about all these other everything else fill in the blank of color communities? And Nate was like, episode 3. So that's actually what we're gonna do. We're gonna try to represent Persian community, and
you guys have so many Persian Jews there.
Oh,
so many.
Yeah. And that's why I'm gonna have a separate.
Can I send you a list of my favorites?
You are more than welcome to make everybody.
I want that list too.
Please introduce me to anybody you ever want to.
I have Celine Rubin. She's amazing.
I
please
love
Celine
her.
Rubin.
I
introduce
love
me
She's
to
my
everybody,
girl.
and I will
She's
be happy to.
amazing.
I have about 20 people
Amazing.
on deck for a Persian series that I'll do too, and that will be
It's
including
LA. Just go to the grocery store in LA. Everybody's
yeah,
Persian.
Elab
Matthew
Market.
Mariel,
Yeah,
Daniel Brawl,
Yep.
Nicole's Kitchen.
Good
please.
number.
I introduce me
Yeah.
to them all. So we are going to do all of this. So this is you guys have been fantastic. Let me have some last thoughts. But listen, Nate, in addition to being a friend, and in addition to obviously being co-host, co-moderating with me for this series, he would be a guest, as I said in the last episode. If I didn't have this going on or somebody else was next to me, he'd be sitting where you guys are on your own screen because Nate isn't just happen to be my friend. He works in this space and he has so much
Incredible.
expertise. He is incredible. So it would be a disservice to not have Nate give his own thoughts, not as a host now, but as his own host slash guest hybrid. So Nate, your own thoughts.
I feel like I get the privilege of being able to sprinkle my thoughts in throughout of the episode, but I think that I kind of hit on this earlier, and one thing that I hope that our viewers come away with is a sense of curiosity, and leading with that, leading with curiosity and empathy, in that our experience as Black Jews may look a little bit different than their experience, and giving space to be curious to understand what that means, particularly for those of us that have a public facing image, the opportunity cost and the security threats that come alongside with that is something that I think that I hope our viewers really understand what that means. There are many levels to this. There are many layers to identity, recognizing that Black Jews are not a monolith, as we've heard other people say, that the voices that were represented here during this episode are not the totality of the Black Jewish community. And that the last thing I'll say is that, like, I hope that as a result of watching this episode, people invite similar conversations within their community where people can actually come together and air out their thought or have a dialogue across difference around topics of identity within our Jewish community. So that's my on one foot. I feel like this episode is going to be pretty legit, and
Oh
looking
yeah.
forward to it.
People who just watch these by the reels on Instagram, they get a taste, but they're just getting a taste. You got to watch the whole episode or listen to a whole episode. It's always available as a podcast, Spotify or anywhere. I make no money off of this. I've never made one red cent. And I mean, hey, I hope I'm one day popular enough that I can say that I get myself some side income, but I don't care in the meantime. I do this because it needs to happen. And I have the conversations that need to happen, whether it's about genocide or whether it's about organ donation, which has nothing to do with anything else. I just have the conversations that need to be had. And and so that's actually going to be the episode that this is going to come after, is one about organ donation, nothing to do with Israel. So what I want to say is this is not, people always feel uncomfortable talking to other. People always feel uncomfortable not knowing how to address other. Everybody does to varying degrees, and the people who don't feel uncomfortable with it usually often show it in really fucking obnoxious ways with their lack of comfort and their bravado with it. It's not, at the end of the day, I say it like this. I'm Jewish. I wear it. It's yes, the kippah can come off, and the kippah can obviously hide me more easily than anybody's skin color ever can. But let's just take me with my kippah. I absolutely welcome, this is my message for other people, my own personal takeaway. I welcome the continuation of what already happens to me when I work in St. John's Hospital in Santa Monica, Catholic Hospital. I'm the Jewish nurse with a kippah walking around. When my patients or my coworkers or the nurses or the nursing students come up to me and at some point say to me, hey, can I ask you a question about Judaism? Or can I ask you a question, why do you wear that? Or can I ask you a question about Israel? I say, great. I would much rather you ask it than just think it and make assumptions. I love that you're asking it, but I'm also talking to them about all sorts of other things. This might have just been the 40th thing I talked about that day, right? And so that's, but on the other hand, when I'm when I'm walking down the street and somebody walks up to me and just says, hey, are those to help hide your horns? Or is that, or do you have to wear that until you make your first million? Yes, things that have been said to me in my life multiple times. I'm not just saying that's anti-Semitic. Duh, we know that's anti-Semitic. I'm saying when that's the way you lead your conversation, I'm not having it.
crazy.
I'm not saying great discourse. Thanks for asking. Actually, we don't have that's not what's happening. So I welcome discourse. I welcome conversation. I don't want the keep on my head to be ignored as if it's not relevant to my life. It is relevant to my life. I don't think the color of your skin, I don't think any of you believe that the color of your skin should be shelved as if it's not relevant or impactful in your lives. It has been relevant and impactful and always will be to your lives and the lives of your children if you have any. But it shouldn't be constantly the thing that defines you any more than the kippah should be the thing that defines me. It should just be one of the things that shape us and help define us. Notice this subtle but important differences there. So I personally love that. And I promise you that other than this series we're doing, which is about shining the spotlight on race, on being of color, I promise you that future ones you're invited to, it's going to have fuck all to do with it. It's going to be for Rachel and Elisheva about Elisheva as being a historian, Rachel and Elisheva being fashionista influencers, April being hell of a scholar when it comes to DEI and anti-Semitism, and Chaya about fill in the blank, being a dancer and being a comedian,
hairstylist.
And Igbo. And the Igbo conversation is its own conversation that she's going to have with me, and she wants.
I just found out.
So we are. You guys are.
Boaz. Don't try to make me no Igbo specialist. I just got a name called Amaraki.
Yes, but you're the one that told. Yeah, but you told me you wanted me to do that episode, so you were going to connect me to that episode.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I feel really grateful because 3 of the folks on this call I'm gonna see in the coming weeks. So sorry, Rachel. Maybe I'll see you when
Rachel,
I get
come to Israel and visit us.
I want to. I think I'm going to come in the spring. I'm working on it.
All right.
Yeah.
Yes, and Rachel, next time you're in LA, you make sure you see me.
Let me know.
You went to the gala for Sheba, I think, right? Wasn't it a Sheba?
Yeah.
I don't think you even know this, but my amazing wife, who Nate is close friends with, she used to be their director of development. She helped them go from raising $500,000 a year to $2 million in year 2 to $6 million in year 3 to $12 million in year 4. My wife is a super woman, and she is a stay-at-home mom superwoman who is pieced out of the whole scene because she wants to be a stay-at-home mom.
Yeah.
So
I love Sheba. My trip to Israel back in May was with Sheba. So I have
they are an amazing hospital and cause. Amazing what they do for all religions and for the soldiers and their rehab and their technology. They are incredible. I should probably even ask my wife to just set up an episode with the heads of that and just do what she does.
Oh my gosh, you should. Like,
you know what would be really cool is like also bringing in the heads from Sarona down in Beersheba.
Sarona is their hospital in Beersheba?
Yeah.
Okay, sounds like a great idea. So listen, everybody, thank you. Biggah apologized that he's the most polite. What a gentleman that guy is. God had to work. Sorry, and he didn't want to interrupt. He didn't want to interrupt and say goodbye, which he should have, of course. He's a gentleman. But it was a pleasure having you guys. It was a pleasure having Biggah. It was a pleasure having Yehudah. Thank you all for doing this and for your time and for your energy and your presence and your intelligence. I appreciate it a ton, and I know he does too.
Absolutely. This is a treat.
All right, guys, I'm getting kicked out.
All right. Thank you for doing this, y'all.
Bye. Bye,
everyone.
Bye, April. Bye, Elisheva. Bye, Nate.
Bye, gorgeous.
Thank you. I love you guys. Bye. See you. Holy Tov.
Thanks for joining us for another edition of Chosen Links. If you like what you heard, feel free to share this episode. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on our socials at Boaz Hepner on X and Facebook and at Hepner.Boaz on Instagram.